A single mom sees a stranger hurting a boy. She steps in. Move away from the kid. The man freezes, but this is only the start. The scared boy whispers, "There are others." A text appears, "Stay out or your girl gets hurt." Now a mother with a badge must protect her child. And every child. She hunts the truth, fights the shadows, and brings light to a dark plan. Hope rises. Kids are found. But then headlights. A truck blocks the road. A furious man steps out. One night. One choice. Stand down or stand up. Can a mother's courage stop a hidden evil and save her own child before the darkness strikes again? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The morning sun painted golden streaks across Pine Grove Park as Clara Dawson watched her daughter Lily skip toward the playground. Her heart swelled with joy at the sight of Lily's brown pigtails bouncing with each step, pink ribbons dancing in the gentle breeze. "Can I go on the swings, Mommy?" Lily called out, already halfway there. "Of course, sweetie. I'll be right here on this bench watching you," Clara replied, settling onto a worn wooden bench near the playground. The familiar creak of swing chains and children's laughter filled the air. Clara pulled her light jacket closer, grateful for these precious Saturday mornings with Lily. Being a single mom and detective meant their time together often competed with late-night cases and emergency calls. But Saturday mornings were sacred, their special mother-daughter time. Lily pumped her legs on the swing, going higher and higher. "Look how high I can go, Mommy. I see you, baby. Be careful," Clara called back. Her police instincts never fully at rest, even during these peaceful moments. A young mother walked past, pushing a stroller. She smiled warmly at Clara, who returned the greeting with a gentle nod. The park had become their weekend sanctuary, a place where Clara could temporarily set aside the weight of her badge and just be Lily's mom. Clara's thoughts drifted to the challenging week she'd had at the precinct. 3 difficult cases had kept her working late, meaning Mrs. Peterson next door had to watch Lily more than usual. The guilt tugged at Clara's heart, but she reminded herself that her work helped keep other children safe. Still, finding the balance between her calling as a detective and her role as a mother wasn't easy. "Dear Lord," she whispered, a habit from her small-town upbringing, "help me be the mother Lily needs and the detective you've called me to be." Lily's delighted squeals brought Clara's attention back to the playground. Her daughter had made a new friend, a little girl with curly red hair, and they were taking turns pushing each other on the swings. Clara smiled, grateful for Lily's natural ability to make friends and her kind heart. "Higher!" Lily giggled as her new friend gave her another push. Clara reached into her bag and pulled out her worn leather-bound Bible, another Saturday morning ritual. The familiar pages brought comfort as she read, occasionally glancing up to check on Lily. The morning's devotional spoke about standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. The words resonated with her both as a mother and as a detective. A couple of joggers passed by, their shoes crunching on the gravel path. The morning was perfect, sunny but cool, with just enough breeze to rustle the maple leaves overhead. These moments helped Clara recharge after the emotional toll of her work week. "Mommy, can I have my water bottle?" Lily called out, red-faced from playing. Clara pulled out the pink water bottle decorated with unicorn stickers and walked it over to her daughter. She smoothed back some loose strands of Lily's hair and kissed her forehead. "Having fun, sweetheart?" "So much fun. Sarah and I are pretending we're astronauts on the swings." "That's wonderful, baby. Remember to take breaks, okay?" Returning to her bench, Clara noticed more families arriving at the park. A group of kids started a game of tag near the jungle gym, their excited shouts mixing with the chirping of birds in the nearby trees. She checked her phone briefly. No messages from work, thankfully. Detective Mark Reyes, her partner, knew how important these Saturday mornings were to her. Unless there was a real emergency, the precinct respected her family time. Clara's gaze swept across the park, a habit from years of police work. Most of what she saw brought warmth to her heart. A grandfather teaching his grandson to fly a kite, a young couple walking their dog, kids playing basketball on the half-court. Then something caught her attention. Near the edge of the park, partially hidden by a large oak tree, stood a man gripping a small boy's arm. The man's face was twisted with anger as he bent down, speaking harshly to the child. The boy couldn't have been more than 8 or 9, his small frame trembling as the man's fingers dug into his arm. Clara's body tensed, her maternal instincts and police training suddenly on high alert. The man's grip tightened, and the boy winced in pain. Their interaction didn't look like a normal parent disciplining a child. Clara had seen enough abuse cases to recognize the signs of something more sinister. "You stupid kid," the man's voice carried across the park, though he was trying to keep his volume down. "If you tell anyone." The boy's face was a mask of terror, his eyes wide and glassy with unshed tears. He tried to pull away, but the man's grip only tightened. Clara stood up, her heart racing. She glanced quickly at Lily, who was still playing happily with her new friend, then back to the troubling scene. The man was now whispering something to the boy, his expression threatening. Every instinct Clara had, as a mother, as a detective, as a protector, screamed that something was very wrong. She touched her hip where her badge was clipped, hidden under her jacket. Taking a deep breath, she began walking toward them, her steps purposeful but measured. The boy's frightened eyes met hers for just a moment, and in that brief connection, Clara saw a silent plea for help. The man hadn't noticed her approach yet, too focused on whatever threats he was whispering to the child. Clara felt the weight of her decision as she moved closer. She knew from experience how these confrontations could go wrong, but she also knew she couldn't walk away, not when a child was in danger. Her training kicked in as she assessed the situation, noting possible escape routes and the presence of other adults nearby who could help if needed. The man's grip on the boy's arm tightened even more, and Clara quickened her pace. Whatever was happening here, she wasn't going to let it continue. She said another quick prayer, asking for guidance and protection, then steeled herself for what was to come. Clara's peaceful morning shattered as angry words cut through the playground's cheerful sounds. Near the climbing structure, a man gripped a small boy's arm with such force that his knuckles had turned white. The child, who couldn't have been more than 8, trembled like a leaf in autumn. "What did I tell you about embarrassing me?" the man snarled, yanking the boy closer. His voice was low but filled with menace. "You're going to pay for this when we get home." The boy's eyes were wide with terror, glistening with unshed tears. He wore a blue t-shirt that seemed a size too big, and Clara noticed how he tried to make himself smaller, shoulders hunched as if expecting a blow. Every maternal and police instinct in Clara's body surged to attention. She glanced quickly at Lily, still happily swinging, before standing up. Other parents had noticed the confrontation too, but they looked away uncomfortably or whispered among themselves. No one moved to help. Clara's footsteps were purposeful as she crossed the playground. Her heart pounded, but years of police training kept her voice steady and authoritative. "Move away from the kid," she commanded, the words cutting through the playground noise like a knife. The man's head snapped up, his face twisting with anger at the interruption. He was tall, probably 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a clean-cut appearance that didn't match his aggressive behavior. "Mind your own business, lady," he growled, tightening his grip on the boy's arm. The child whimpered, and that small sound steeled Clara's resolve. She stepped closer, her stance wide and confident, despite being several inches shorter than the man. "I said move away from the kid now." Each word was crystal clear, leaving no room for misinterpretation. "Who do you think you are?" the man demanded, taking a threatening step toward Clara. His free hand clenched into a fist. "This is my son, and I'll discipline him however I see fit." Parents had stopped their conversations, and several children paused in their play. The atmosphere in the park grew tense, like the air before a storm. Clara could feel everyone watching, waiting to see what would happen. "Last warning," Clara said calmly, reaching into her jacket pocket. With practiced efficiency, she pulled out her badge and held it up, letting the morning sun glint off the polished metal. "Detective Clara Dawson, Pine Grove Police Department. Step away from the child." The effect was immediate. Gasps rippled through the gathered crowd. The man's face drained of color, his aggressive posture crumbling as realization hit him. His grip on the boy's arm loosened, and the child immediately yanked free, scrambling behind Clara. I didn't," the man stammered, taking an unsteady step backward. His earlier bravado evaporated in the face of authority. "We were just having a discussion." Clara felt the boy pressing against her legs, his small body still trembling. She kept her eyes locked on the man while reaching back with one hand to offer reassurance to the child. "Discussions don't leave bruises," she said firmly, having noticed the marks on the boy's arm. More parents had gathered now, forming a loose circle around the scene. Some had their phones out, recording. A mother near the swings had gathered Lily and several other children close, keeping them safely away from the confrontation. "You can't. This is ridiculous," the man sputtered, but his eyes darted around like a cornered animal's. "You have no right." I have every right, Clara interrupted, her voice carrying across the now quiet playground. And I have about 50 witnesses who saw you assault this child. She paused, letting that sink in. I've already signaled for backup. They should be here any minute. As if on cue, a police siren wailed in the distance. The man's face crumpled, fear replacing his anger. He took another stumbling step backward, looking for an escape route, but the circle of parents had closed ranks. There would be no easy escape. The boy's grip on Clara's legs tightened, and she felt him press his face against her jacket. She could feel his racing heart beginning to slow as hope replaced fear. A mother from the crowd stepped forward, offering the child a gentle smile and a bottle of water, which he accepted with shaking hands. The morning sun continued to shine brightly over Pine Grove Park, but the atmosphere had transformed. What had started as a confrontation had become a moment of community unity. Parents who had been hesitant to act now stood firm, their presence a wall of support. Children watched from safe distances, witnessing not just the power of authority, but the importance of standing up against wrongdoing. Clara maintained her professional composure, but inside, her heart swelled with something beyond pride. It was the pure, powerful feeling of making a real difference. The badge in her hand wasn't just a symbol of law enforcement. At this moment, it was a beacon of hope, a shield for those who needed protection most. The approaching sirens grew louder, and 2 police cruisers pulled into the park's parking lot, their lights flashing. The man's shoulders slumped in defeat as uniformed officers approached, their faces grim and determined. The screech of police sirens pierced the morning air. 2 patrol cars pulled up to the park entrance, their red and blue lights reflecting off the playground equipment. Officer Daniels, young and earnest in his crisp uniform, rushed forward with his partner close behind. "Detective Dawson," Daniels called out, slightly out of breath. "We got your signal. Is everything okay?" Clara kept herself positioned between the man and the trembling boy. "Take him into custody," she directed, her voice steady and professional. "I want him processed for child abuse and endangerment." The man's face twisted with rage as Officer Daniels approached with handcuffs. "You can't do this! That's my nephew! I have custody!" He tried to lunge forward, but Daniels' partner was quick to restrain him. "Save it for the station," Daniels said firmly, though Clara could hear the slight tremor in his voice. The young officer was still learning to mask his emotions on the job. Parents and children watched in tense silence as the officers led the struggling man to their patrol car. His shouts echoed across the playground until the car door slammed shut, muffling his threats. Only then did Clara allow her shoulders to relax slightly. She turned her full attention to the boy, who stood rooted to the spot, his small frame still shaking. Carefully, she crouched down to his eye level, making sure to give him enough space so he wouldn't feel trapped. "Hi there," she said softly. "I'm Clara. Can you tell me your name?" The boy's eyes darted between Clara and the ground, his hands fidgeting with the hem of his worn t-shirt. Ethan, he whispered, so quietly she almost missed it. "Ethan," Clara repeated warmly. "That's a nice name. You're safe now, Ethan. He can't hurt you anymore." From the corner of her eye, she saw Lily hovering nearby, her face filled with concern. Clara gave her daughter a reassuring nod, silently proud of how Lily understood to keep her distance for now. "I'm going to call some people who can help make sure you stay safe, okay?" Clara kept her voice gentle but clear. "They're specialists who work with kids just like you." Ethan's eyes widened with fresh fear. "Please don't send me away," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "He said if I ever told anyone, they'd put me somewhere worse." Clara's heart clenched at his words. She'd heard similar fears from countless children during her years on the force, but it never got easier. "That's not true, sweetheart. Those were lies he told to scare you." She reached into her pocket and pulled out her detective's badge, holding it where Ethan could see it clearly. "See this? It means my job is protecting people, especially brave kids like you. I promise you're not in trouble." Ethan studied the badge intently, his trembling subsiding slightly. "You're a real police officer?" "I'm a detective," Clara explained with a small smile. "Like a special kind of police officer who solves problems and helps people who are scared or hurt." A social services van pulled up to the curb, and Clara saw Sarah Chen, one of the county's most experienced caseworkers, step out. They had worked together many times before, and Clara was relieved to see a familiar face. "Ethan, this is my friend Sarah. Clara introduced as the social worker approached slowly. "She's going to take you somewhere safe while we sort everything out." Sarah crouched down beside Clara, her kind face warming with a gentle smile. "Hi, Ethan. Would you like to come with me? We can get you something to eat, and I have some cool games in my office we can play." Ethan's small hand suddenly gripped Clara's sleeve. Can you come too?" he asked, his voice trembling again. Clara shared a quick look with Sarah, who gave a subtle nod. "Of course I can," Clara assured him. "I'll ride with you to the office, okay?" "Mommy," Lily's voice piped up. "Can I come too? Maybe Ethan would feel better if there was another kid around?" Clara felt a surge of pride at her daughter's compassion. She glanced at Sarah, who smiled and nodded again. "That's very thoughtful, Lily," Sarah said. "Would you like that, Ethan?" The boy looked at Lily for a long moment, then gave a tiny nod. Some of the tension seemed to leave his shoulders at the prospect of not being alone with strangers. They walked slowly to the van, Clara keeping pace with Ethan's hesitant steps. Sarah opened the sliding door, revealing seats equipped with child safety features. "You can sit wherever you'd like," she told Ethan. Lily climbed in first, patting the seat beside her. "You can sit next to me if you want. I have some cool stickers in my backpack." Ethan carefully settled beside Lily, while Clara sat on his other side. As Sarah started the van, Lily chatted softly about her favorite stickers and asked Ethan which colors he liked best. The drive to the social services office was short, but Clara could see Ethan growing more anxious as they approached the building. His breathing became shallow, and his hands gripped the seat edge tightly. "Everything okay, buddy?" Clara asked quietly. Ethan's eyes darted around the van interior, as if checking who might hear him. Then he leaned closer to Clara, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "He's not just hurting me." Ethan's words came out in a rush. "There are others." Clara felt her stomach drop, the weight of those words hitting her like a physical blow. She maintained her composed expression for Ethan's sake, but her mind was already racing with the implications. What had started as a routine park intervention had just become something much darker, much more urgent. Sarah pulled into a parking spot, unaware of what Ethan had just revealed. "Here we are," she announced cheerfully. "I've got some snacks inside and we can talk more where it's comfortable." Clara caught Sarah's eye in the rearview mirror and gave her a subtle signal, their long-established indication that something critical had come up. Sarah's expression remained warm and professional, but Clara saw the slight nod of acknowledgement. The warm aroma of garlic and tomato sauce filled Clara's small kitchen as she stirred the pot of spaghetti. Steam rose in gentle swirls, but her thoughts were far from the comfort of their evening meal. Ethan's whispered words echoed in her mind. "There are others." "Mommy, you're making the sauce dance." Lily giggled from her perch on a kitchen stool, her legs swinging back and forth. Clara blinked, forcing herself back to the present moment. "Am I?" She smiled, giving the sauce an extra vigorous stir that made it splash playfully. "I guess I am. Should we make it do the cha-cha?" Lily's laughter filled the kitchen, bright and pure. Clara's heart squeezed tight in her chest. How could anyone hurt a child? The image of Ethan's frightened face flashed through her mind again. "Can we have extra cheese?" Lily asked, already reaching for the container of grated Parmesan. "Of course, sweetie." Clara drained the pasta and divided it between their plates. "But vegetables first, remember?" She watched as Lily carefully speared a piece of broccoli with her fork. Such a simple, ordinary moment. Dinner with her daughter. Yet Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something dark and dangerous was lurking just beyond their warm circle of light. "Mommy, why are you eating so slow?" Lily asked, marinara sauce dotting her chin. Clara realized she'd been pushing the same meatball around her plate for several minutes. "Just thinking about work, honey." "About the scared boy from the park?" Clara set down her fork. Sometimes she forgot how perceptive children could be. "Yes, about him. His name is Ethan. Is he okay now?" "He's safe," Clara assured her, though uncertainty gnawed at her insides. She'd placed Ethan with emergency foster care, but his words suggested there was much more to uncover. "Sometimes part of my job is making sure kids are safe." "Like how you keep me safe?" "Exactly like that." Clara reached across the table to wipe the sauce from Lily's chin. "Speaking of which, it's almost bedtime for certain young ladies who have dance class tomorrow. Can we read 2 stories tonight?" Lily bargained, batting her eyelashes. "Nice try, Missy. 1 story, then lights out." After clearing the dishes, Clara led Lily through their bedtime routine, Bath time involved an epic saga featuring rubber ducks and a brave little mermaid. Then came pajamas, the pink ones with unicorns that Lily insisted on wearing at least 3 nights a week. "Can we read The Brave Little Engine?" Lily asked, already pulling it from her bookshelf. Clara settled into the worn armchair beside Lily's bed, her daughter snuggling close. The familiar words washed over them both. I think I can. Clara's voice grew softer as Lily's eyes grew heavier. By the last page, Lily was fighting to keep her eyes open. Clara tucked the blanket around her shoulders and kissed her forehead. "Sweet dreams, my brave girl." "Good night, Mommy," Lily mumbled, already half asleep. Clara lingered in the doorway, watching the gentle rise and fall of her daughter's chest. The nightlight cast a soft glow across the room, making shadows dance on the walls. For 7 years, this had been their sanctuary, just the two of them, safe and sound. Back in the living room, Clara sank onto the couch and finally allowed herself to fully process the day's events. The man's grip on Ethan's arm, the terror in the boy's eyes, that whispered confession. It all pointed to something bigger and more sinister than a single case of abuse. She reached for her phone to check her messages. There was a brief update from social services confirming Ethan's placement and a couple of routine work emails. Then, just as she was about to set the phone down, it buzzed with a new message. The number was blocked. Clara's pulse quickened as she opened the text. "Stay out of this, or Lily will pay the price." The words seemed to pulse on the screen, each one a hammer blow to her chest. Clara's hands began to shake. The comfortable silence of her home suddenly felt oppressive, threatening. She jumped up to check the locks on the doors and windows, drawing all the curtains tight. Her police training kicked in, urging her to document everything. She took a screenshot of the message, her fingers still trembling slightly. But beneath the fear, another emotion was building. Anger. How dare they threaten her child? How many other children were suffering while these people operated in the shadows? Clara moved quietly to Lily's doorway again, watching her daughter sleep peacefully. The moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting a silver glow across Lily's face. In that moment, Clara felt torn between two powerful forces. Her duty as a detective to protect the vulnerable and her fierce instinct as a mother to keep her own child safe. She thought of Ethan's mother. Where was she? Had she also received threatening messages? Had she been forced to look the other way? The questions multiplied, each one darker than the last. Her phone felt heavy in her hand, the threatening message still glowing on the screen. Clara knew she should report it immediately, start an official investigation. But something held her back, a primal fear that any wrong move could put Lily in danger. She walked to the kitchen window and peered out into the darkness. The street looked normal, porch lights glowing, a cat slinking along the sidewalk. Mrs. Peterson's wind chimes tinkling in the gentle breeze. But now, Clara wondered what else might be out there. Watching, waiting. The text message had transformed their cozy home into something more fragile, like a soap bubble that could burst at any moment. Clara leaned against the counter, her heart racing as she confronted the reality of their situation. She wasn't just a detective anymore, unraveling a case from the safety of her office. She and Lily had become part of the story, potential targets. The refrigerator hummed softly, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Such ordinary sounds, but tonight they seemed to mock the illusion of security she'd built around their lives. Clara gripped the edge of the counter, trying to steady herself. From Lily's room came the sound of gentle breathing, peaceful and unaware. Clara closed her eyes, drawing strength from that simple sound. Whatever threat lay in that message, whatever darkness she'd stumbled upon, she would face it. She had to. Not just for Ethan and the other children, but for Lily, too. Because what kind of mother would she be if she turned away now? What kind of example would she set for her daughter if she let fear win? The same faith that had carried her through single motherhood and the challenges of her career would have to sustain her through this as well. Clara looked down at her phone one more time, the threatening message still stark against the screen's glow. Her finger hovered over the power button, longing to make it all disappear. But she knew better. This was only the beginning. Clara sank into her weathered brown couch, the phone trembling in her hand as she read the threatening message again. The blue glow from the screen cast harsh shadows across her face in the dimly lit living room. Her cop instincts screamed to report it immediately, to get ahead of the threat. but her mother's heart ached with fear. She glanced down the hallway toward Lily's room, where a soft nightlight spilled out from under the door. Her daughter slept peacefully, unaware of the darkness that had crept into their lives. Clara's throat tightened. The thought of anything happening to Lily made her chest constrict. Setting the phone face down on the coffee table, Clara ran her fingers through her hair, trying to think clearly. The house felt too quiet now, making every creak of the old floorboard seem sinister. She got up to check the locks on the front door again, then the back door, then each window. Her hands traced the familiar metal latches, finding small comfort in their solid resistance. Back on the couch, Clara pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself small like she used to do as a child when she was scared. The threat kept playing in her mind. Stay out of this, or Lily will pay the price. Such simple words, but they carried the weight of her worst fears. She thought of Ethan's frightened face at the park, how he'd clung to her uniform like a lifeline. His whispered revelation about others made her stomach churn. How many more children were suffering? How many more needed someone to step in, to be their voice? "What do I do, Lord?" she whispered into the quiet room. "I can't just walk away." But Lily, her voice cracked on her daughter's name. The old grandfather clock in the corner ticked steadily, marking time as Clara wrestled with her decision. As a detective, she'd faced threats before. But this was different. This wasn't just about her anymore. Every choice she made now could affect Lily. She picked up her phone again, fingers hovering over the keypad. Reporting the threat was procedure. It would start a paper trail, get protective measures in place. But it would also escalate things, make everything official. What if that triggered whoever sent the message to act? Clara stood up and paced the living room, her sock-covered feet silent on the carpet. Family photos lined the walls. Lily's school pictures, snapshots of them at the beach, at church, at the park. Her eyes lingered on one taken last Christmas, Lily beaming with missing front teeth as she held up her new bicycle. The joy in that image made Clara's heart ache. "I can't let fear win," she murmured, touching the frame gently. "That's not what I want to teach you, baby girl." She thought about their dinner conversation earlier, how Lily had chatted about wanting to help kids like Ethan. Even at 7, her daughter understood about doing what was right. Clara had raised her to be brave, to stand up for others. How could she now shrink back when it mattered most? The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders as she sank to her knees beside the coffee table. Clara clasped her hands together, bowing her head. Prayer had always been her anchor in difficult times. A quiet conversation with God when everything else seemed uncertain. "Lord," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the still room. "I need your strength now, not just for me, but for Lily, for Ethan, for all the children who need protection." Tears slipped down her cheeks as she continued. "Show me how to be both the mother and the detective they need. Give me wisdom to know the right path. And please, please, keep my baby safe." The prayer settled something in her spirit, even as her hands still trembled slightly. Clara remained on her knees, drawing deep breaths, letting peace gradually replace her panic. The threat was still real, the danger still present, but she felt steadier now. She thought of her own mother's words from years ago. Sometimes being brave means being scared but doing the right thing anyway. Those words had guided her through police academy, through single motherhood, through countless difficult cases. Clara shifted her weight, still kneeling, and looked up at the cross hanging on her living room wall. It had been a gift from her church family when she'd first made detective. The simple wooden symbol reminded her that she wasn't facing this alone. Her resolve strengthened with each passing moment. She would protect Lily, not by running away, but by facing this head-on. And she would help Ethan and the other children, because that's what God had equipped her to do. That's why she wore the badge. "I won't let them win," she whispered firmly, her prayer transforming into a vow. "I'll protect them both, whatever it takes." The Sunday morning sun barely peeked through thick clouds as Clara pulled her sedan into the police station's parking lot. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white with tension. She'd spent most of the night arranging emergency protective custody for Ethan, making countless calls to judges and social workers who owed her favors. Inside the station's children's interview room, Ethan sat hunched in an oversized chair, his small frame almost swallowed by the plush blue fabric. He wore the same wrinkled t-shirt and jeans from yesterday, his sneakers scuffed and worn. Dark circles under his eyes told Clara he hadn't slept much either. "Hey there, Ethan," Clara said softly, pulling up a chair beside him. She placed a paper bag on the table between them. "I brought you some breakfast. Chocolate chip muffins. My daughter Lily's favorite." Ethan's eyes darted to the bag, but he didn't reach for it. Clara gently slid it closer to him. "It's okay," she assured him. "You must be hungry." With trembling fingers, Ethan reached into the bag and pulled out a muffin. He took tiny bites, as if afraid someone might snatch it away. "We're going to take a little drive," Clara explained, keeping her voice warm and steady. "There's a special place where you'll be safe while I work on helping you. It's like a big house with other kids and really nice people who look after everyone." Ethan's shoulders tensed. Will he find me there?" Clara shook her head firmly. "No, honey. No one knows where this place is except the good guys. And I'm one of the good guys, remember?" A ghost of a smile flickered across Ethan's face as he nodded. Clara helped him gather the few belongings social services had collected from his home, a worn backpack containing some clothes and a tattered stuffed penguin. As they walked to her car, Clara noticed how Ethan stayed close to her side, almost hiding in her shadow. The drive would take about 40 minutes. Clara turned on the radio to a station playing soft pop music, keeping the volume low. In her rearview mirror, she could see Ethan in the back seat, clutching his penguin and staring out the window. "You know," Clara said conversationally, "Lily loves the swings at the park. She says it feels like flying. Do you have a favorite thing to do at the playground?" Ethan was quiet for so long that Clara thought he might not answer. Then his voice came, barely above a whisper. "I like the slide, but I'm not supposed to play. He says it's for babies." Clara's heart clenched. "Well, I think slides are pretty amazing. And you know what? At this new place, they have a playground. You can play on the slide as much as you want." She saw Ethan's eyes widen slightly in the mirror. "Really?" "Really. No one will tell you that you can't play there." They passed through residential neighborhoods, then industrial areas, and finally into a more rural setting. The safe house was deliberately located away from the city, surrounded by tall trees that provided natural privacy. As they turned onto the long driveway, Clara noticed Ethan pressing himself further back into his seat. The building looked like a large farmhouse, painted a cheerful yellow with white trim. Flower boxes hung from the windows, and a rainbow-colored play structure was visible in the fenced backyard. 2 staff members, wearing casual clothes instead of uniforms, waited on the wide front porch. Clara parked and turned to face Ethan. "Ready to check out your temporary home?" Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. His lower lip trembled as he clutched his penguin tighter. "Please don't leave me," he whispered. The raw fear in his voice made Clara's throat tight. She climbed into the back seat, careful to give him space while still being close enough to offer comfort. "Ethan, look at me," she said gently. When his eyes met hers, she continued, "I promise you that I won't abandon you. I'll visit you here, and I'll call to check on you every day. While you're staying safe in this house, I'm going to be working very hard to make sure no one can hurt you ever again. Promise?" His voice cracked on the word. Clara reached out slowly, offering her hand palm up. After a moment's hesitation, Ethan placed his small hand in hers. "I promise." Clara's office felt smaller than usual as she spread case files across her desk early Monday morning. The weekend's events had left her restless, and she'd arrived at the precinct before sunrise. Coffee steam curled up from her world's best mom mug, a Mother's Day gift from Lily that always made her smile, even on the hardest days. Her computer screen glowed in the dim light as she typed the name from the park incident. Marcus Thorne. The arrest report was simple enough, endangering a minor, resisting arrest, but something about Ethan's whispered words kept nagging at her. "There are others," Clara mumbled to herself, pulling up the database of recent child-related cases. She started with cases from the past 6 months, focusing on their small town of Mill Creek and the surrounding county. Her eyes burned as she scrolled through report after report. Most were routine, custody disputes, runaway teens, minor accidents. But then a pattern began to emerge. 3 children had gone missing from nearby towns, all within driving distance of Mill Creek. Each case had been marked as resolved when the children returned home on their own, claiming they'd just run away. Clara's detective instincts tingled. Something wasn't right. She grabbed a yellow legal pad and started making notes. The first case was Tommy Chen, age 12, missing for 4 days in March. The second was Maria Rodriguez, 11, gone for a week in April. Then James Foster, 13, disappeared for 5 days in May. Clara pulled up their individual case files, scanning the interview transcripts. Her heart began to pound as she noticed similarities. All 3 kids had mentioned a nice man who offered them help. All 3 had returned with unexplained bruises they wouldn't talk about. "Hey, Dawson." Officer Pete Martinez stuck his head in her office. "You're in early." Clara looked up, blinking. "Pete, you worked the Rodriguez case, right?" "Maria?" "Yeah, the runaway. Why? Did anything seem off about it to you?" Pete stepped into her office, frowning. "Now that you mention it, the girl was terrified of something, but she wouldn't say what. Parents just seemed relieved to have her back. Didn't want to push." Clara nodded, jotting down notes. "Did she mention anyone helping her while she was gone?" "Some guy who gave her food, I think. We couldn't get a clear description." Pete scratched his head. "What's this about?" "Just following up on something," Clara said carefully, not ready to share her suspicions yet. After Pete left, she dove back into the files. She pulled up Marcus Thorne's record again, this time digging deeper. No prior arrests, but his name appeared in witness statements from 2 other child endangerment cases. Both times, he'd been questioned and released. Both cases were eventually dropped when the victims stopped cooperating. Clara's hands shook slightly as she opened her bottom desk drawer and pulled out a local map. With careful precision, she marked the locations of each incident: the park, the missing children's homes where they were found. The points formed a rough circle around Mill Creek. Next, she checked property records. Marcus Thorne owned a small house on the edge of town, but his brother, Robert Thorne, had multiple properties scattered throughout the county. Storage units, abandoned buildings, a defunct summer camp. "Perfect places to hide kids," Clara whispered, her stomach churning. She picked up her phone and called Sarah Chen, Tommy's mother. "Mrs. Chen, this is Detective Dawson from Mill Creek PD. I'm following up on Tommy's case from March. Could you tell me again about when he came home?" Sarah's voice was hesitant. I thought that case was closed. Just routine follow-up," Clara assured her. "Anything you remember could help." "He was different when he came back. Jumpy. Wouldn't let his father hug him for weeks." Sarah's voice cracked. "He still has nightmares, but he won't tell us about what." Clara's pen moved quickly across her notepad. "Did he mention anyone specific? Anyone who helped him while he was gone?" A long pause. "There was a man. Tommy said he was nice at first, bought him food, but then..." Sarah stopped. "Detective, is Tommy in trouble?" "No, ma'am. I'm just trying to keep other kids safe." Clara kept her voice gentle. "Did Tommy ever mention any other children?" Another pause. He said he heard other kids crying, but we thought he was confused, traumatized. The police said he just ran away." Clara thanked Sarah and hung up, her hands trembling as she added to her notes. She pulled up social media searches, looking for connections between Marcus Thorne and the other cases. Nothing obvious at first, but then she noticed something. A small construction company, Valley View Contractors, showed up repeatedly. Marcus did occasional work for them. They'd done renovations on Robert Thorne's properties. They'd also done work at locations near where each child had disappeared. She opened the company's business records. The owner was listed as James Whitaker, but the financial backing came through a maze of shell companies. Clara traced them as far as she could, her dread growing with each connection. The web spread out before her. Property records, business fronts, missing children, dropped cases. Too many coincidences, too many connections. Her office walls seemed to close in as the horrible reality became clear. Marcus Thorne wasn't just one bad man hurting one child. He was part of something bigger, something organized. The construction company could move people without suspicion. The properties provided hiding places. The pattern of children returning home kept suspicions low. Clara stared at her evidence wall, where she'd pinned her notes and maps. Her coffee had gone cold, untouched. The morning sun now streamed through her office window, but it brought no warmth. Each piece of paper represented a child who'd been hurt, a family torn apart, a failure of the system to protect its most vulnerable. She thought of Ethan's terrified face in the park, of his whispered warning. She thought of Lily, safe at school right now, and all the other children who weren't safe at all. The phone on her desk rang, startling her. It was the social worker handling Ethan's case. "Detective Dawson? Ethan's asking for you. He says he's ready to talk, but only to you." Clara looked at her evidence wall one more time, then grabbed her keys. "I'm on my way." The evening routine was usually Clara's favorite part of the day. The soft glow of Lily's butterfly nightlight cast dancing shadows on pink walls as Clara helped her daughter into her favorite unicorn pajamas. But tonight, her mind kept drifting to the files she'd reviewed earlier, to faces of children whose stories remained untold. "Arms up," Clara said, managing to keep her voice light as she guided Lily's head through the pajama top. The fabric was worn soft from countless washes, just the way Lily liked it. Lily's dark curls bounced as she settled into bed, her brown eyes wide and serious, in a way that made Clara's heart squeeze. Her daughter had been quiet during dinner, pushing her mac and cheese around her plate instead of diving in with her usual enthusiasm. "Time for prayers?" Clara asked, reaching for the well-worn children's Bible on the nightstand. But Lily clutched her stuffed giraffe closer, her small fingers working nervously at its fuzzy ears. "Mommy, are there bad men out there?" The question hit Clara like a physical blow. She forced her face to stay calm, though her hands trembled slightly as she set the Bible back down. Taking a deep breath, she perched on the edge of Lily's bed, the mattress dipping under her weight. "Come here, sweetheart." Clara patted the space beside her, and Lily scooted closer, dragging her giraffe with her. The familiar scent of Lily's strawberry shampoo helped steady Clara's nerves. "What makes you ask that?" "I heard Tommy at school talking about the man at the park," Lily whispered. "He said his mom told him to be careful of strangers now." Clara wrapped an arm around her daughter's small shoulders, drawing her close. "You know what? There are so many more good people in the world than bad ones. Like Mrs. Rodriguez next door, who always bakes us cookies. Or Pastor Mike, who helps everyone at church. But the bad ones are scary." Lily's voice quivered. "They can be," Clara agreed carefully. "But that's why Mommy became a police officer, to protect people from anyone who wants to hurt them. And I'm not alone. There are lots of other brave police officers, teachers, doctors, and helpers who work every day to keep everyone safe." Lily seemed to consider this, her small face scrunched in thought. "Like how you helped that boy at the park." Clara's throat tightened. "Yes, exactly like that. And you know what else?" "What?" Lily looked up, her eyes searching Clara's face. "God is always watching over us, even when we're scared. Remember what Pastor Mike says about being brave?" Lily's face brightened slightly. "That being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means doing the right thing even when you are scared." "That's exactly right," Clara smiled, genuine pride warming her voice. She tucked a stray curl behind Lily's ear. "And you know what else? You have the bravest heart I know." "Really?" Lily's eyes widened. Really? Remember when you stood up for Sophie when those bigger kids were teasing her about her glasses?" Lily nodded, sitting up straighter. "They weren't being nice, and you always say we should be kind." "That's right, and that was very brave of you." Clara pulled back the covers. "Now, time for sleep, my brave girl." Lily slid down under her blanket, clutching her giraffe. "Will you sing the special song?" Clara smiled, though her heart ached. Their special song, "You Are My Sunshine," had been a constant since Lily was a baby. She began to sing softly, watching as Lily's eyes grew heavy. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray." By the time Clara finished the song, Lily's breathing had evened out, her face peaceful in sleep. Clara sat there a moment longer, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall, fighting back tears that threatened to spill. Finally, she rose carefully from the bed, adjusting Lily's blanket one last time. She padded quietly to the doorway, pausing to whisper, "Sweet dreams, my brave girl. I love you." In her own room, Clara stood at the window, gazing out into the darkness. Streetlights cast pools of yellow light on the quiet suburban street below. A car passed slowly, its headlights sweeping across the houses. Was it just a neighbor returning late? Or someone watching? The threat message on her phone felt heavy in her pocket. The files from work flashed through her mind. Missing children, unexplained bruises, stories that didn't quite add up. Connections that had been there all along. If only someone had looked close enough. Now that she'd seen the pattern, she couldn't unsee it. Mrs. Chen's roses swayed in the evening breeze next door, their pale blooms ghostly in the darkness. The neighborhood looked so normal, so safe. But Clara knew better now. Behind some of these peaceful facades, children were suffering. The man from the park wasn't working alone. He was just one piece of a larger, darker puzzle. Clara pressed her palm against the cool glass of the window. Somewhere out there, other children like Ethan were waiting for someone to help them, to believe them, to save them. And somewhere in the shadows, the people hurting them were watching, waiting to see if she would back down. The street outside remained quiet, but Clara could feel the weight of unseen eyes. Her fight wasn't just beginning. It had already begun the moment she stepped forward in that park. And now, with both Lily's safety and other children's lives in the balance, she couldn't afford to lose. Clara's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as she drove to the children's services facility where Ethan was staying. In the back seat, Lily hummed softly, her backpack stuffed with carefully chosen toys beside her. The morning sun filtered through the car windows, warming the interior despite the crisp autumn air outside. "Remember what we talked about, sweetie?" Clara glanced at her daughter through the rearview mirror. Lily nodded, her dark curls bouncing. "Ethan might be shy because he's scared, like when I started first grade and didn't know anyone." Clara's heart swelled with pride at her daughter's understanding. "That's right. And what else?" "We need to be extra nice and patient," Lily recited, hugging her favorite green dinosaur to her chest. "And it's okay if he doesn't want to play right away." The Children's Services building came into view, a low brick structure with cheerful murals painted on its walls. Clara had been here countless times for work, but today felt different. Today, she wasn't Detective Dawson. She was just Clara, a mom trying to help a frightened child feel safe. Mrs. Thompson, the facility director, met them at the entrance. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her warm smile put Clara at ease. "Ethan's been asking about you," she said softly. "He's in the playroom." Clara squeezed Lily's hand as they followed Mrs. Thompson down the brightly lit hallway. Educational posters and children's artwork lined the walls. But Clara noticed Lily's eyes drawn to the closed doors they passed, behind which other children stayed. The playroom was painted in soft blues and yellows, with child-sized furniture scattered around. In the corner, Ethan sat alone at a small table, pushing a toy car back and forth without really playing with it. He wore clean clothes that seemed a size too big, and his sandy hair had been neatly combed. "Ethan," Mrs. Thompson called gently. "Look who's come to visit." The boy's head snapped up, his eyes immediately finding Clara. Relief flooded his face, but uncertainty crept in when he noticed Lily partially hiding behind her mother's leg. "Hi, Ethan," Clara said softly, moving slowly into the room. "I brought someone special to meet you. This is my daughter, Lily." Ethan's gaze dropped to the floor, his shoulders hunching slightly. Clara recognized the protective posture. She'd seen it too many times in her work with traumatized children. "Hi," Lily whispered, peeking out. She clutched her dinosaur tighter but took a brave step forward. Clara guided them to the table where Ethan sat. "Is it okay if we join you?" she asked. When Ethan nodded slightly, she pulled out chairs for herself and Lily. The three of them sat in silence for a moment. Clara noticed how Ethan's fingers never stopped moving, fidgeting with the toy car's wheels. Mrs. Thompson quietly excused herself, leaving them alone but visible through the room's large window. "I brought some toys," Lily announced suddenly, her voice stronger now. She reached for her backpack and carefully emptied its contents onto the table. Coloring books, crayons, a few small cars, and some building blocks. Ethan's eyes widened slightly at the collection, but he didn't reach for anything. His gaze kept returning to the green dinosaur still clutched in Lily's arms. "This is Rex," Lily said, noticing his interest. "He helps me when I'm scared or sad." She held the dinosaur out slightly, not quite offering it but making it clear she'd noticed Ethan's attention. Clara watched, hardly daring to breathe, as her daughter handled the delicate situation with instinctive grace. Lily, who usually guarded Rex jealously, was opening up her most precious possession to this wounded boy. "He's not scary," Lily continued, setting Rex on the table between them. "See? His teeth are just for smiling." Ethan's hand twitched toward the dinosaur but pulled back. Clara saw the internal struggle play across his face, the desire to connect warring with learned fear. "It's okay," Lily whispered, pushing Rex a little closer. "He likes making new friends." Slowly, So slowly. Ethan reached out and touched one of Rex's soft spikes. When nothing bad happened, his fingers wrapped around the dinosaur's middle, drawing it closer to examine it. "He's green," Ethan said, his voice barely audible. It was the first words he'd spoken since they arrived. "That's his favorite color," Lily replied matter-of-factly. "What's yours?" Ethan considered this for a moment. "Blue," he whispered, glancing up at Lily for just a second before looking back at Rex. "Blue is pretty," Lily agreed. She reached for her crayons and pulled out a sheet from her coloring book. "Want to color with me? We can make everything blue if you want." A tiny change came over Ethan's face, the barest softening around his eyes, the slightest upturn at the corner of his mouth. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was the closest thing to hope Clara had seen on his face since that day in the park. Lily pushed the crayons between them, picking out a purple one for herself. After a moment's hesitation, Ethan selected a blue crayon, still holding Rex carefully in his other hand. Clara watched as the two children began coloring side by side. Lily chattered softly about her favorite colors and which animals she liked best, while Ethan listened and occasionally nodded. His grip on Rex gradually relaxed, and his coloring became more confident. Then it happened. Lily made a joke about her purple giraffe looking more like a grape with legs, and the faintest smile crossed Ethan's face. It was small and fleeting, but it was real. Clara felt tears well up in her eyes. This moment, this simple connection between two children over crayons and a stuffed dinosaur, felt like the first ray of sunlight after a storm. In all her years of police work, she'd learned that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs came in the smallest moments. She watched as Lily showed Ethan how to color inside the lines, as he carefully followed her example, as that tiny smile made brief appearances when Lily said something funny. Each small interaction was a thread of trust being woven, a bridge being built between Ethan's world of fear and the possibility of safety. The precinct hummed with its usual Monday morning chaos. Phones rang constantly, coffee cups, cluttered desks, and the steady tap of keyboards filled the air. Clara sat at her desk, sifting through case files she'd gathered over the weekend. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but determination kept her going. Detective Mike Sanders, her partner of 5 years, approached with 2 steaming cups of coffee. His salt and pepper hair was disheveled, and worry lines creased his forehead. He set one cup on Clara's desk, careful not to disturb her organized chaos of papers. "You look like you haven't slept," he said, pulling up a chair beside her desk. The old wood creaked under his weight. Clara managed a tired smile. "That obvious, huh?" She reached for the coffee, savoring its warmth between her palms. "Thanks for this." Mike glanced at the files spread across her desk. Missing children reports, suspected abuse cases, and interview transcripts from the past 6 months lay scattered before them. Post-it notes in Clara's neat handwriting connected seemingly unrelated incidents. "Clara," Mike's voice dropped lower. "Word's getting around about your extracurricular investigation." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "The brass isn't happy you're poking around in closed cases." "These cases shouldn't have been closed," Clara replied, pulling out a particular file. "Look at this one. 8-year-old Tommy Richards. His uncle reported him missing last March, but the investigation was shut down after just 2 weeks. The detective assigned to the case cited lack of evidence and marked it as a probable runaway." Mike rubbed his face. "An 8-year-old runaway?" "Exactly." Clara spread out 3 more files. "And here, similar cases, all closed too quickly, all involving children from low-income families or broken homes. Kids that society tends to forget about." "I get it. I do," Mike said, his voice gentle but firm. "But you're stepping on some powerful toes here. That guy you caught at the park? His family has connections. Deep ones." Clara's jaw tightened. "Is that why you're here? Did someone send you to talk me down?" Mike's expression softened. "I'm here because I care about you, and I'm worried. You've got Lily to think about." The mention of her daughter made Clara's stomach clench. The threatening text message flashed through her mind, but she pushed the fear aside. "I am thinking about Lily. Every time I look at these files, I see her face. These could be her classmates, her friends, which is exactly why you need to be careful," Mike insisted. He glanced around the busy office before continuing in a lower voice. "I've been hearing things, Clara. the kind of things that keep me up at night. There are people in this city, people with influence, who don't want these cases reopened. Clara took a long sip of coffee, using the moment to steady herself. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying there's more here than just one abusive man in a park, and the deeper you dig, the more dangerous it gets. Mike pulled a small notebook from his pocket, flipping it open. 3 detectives in the past decade have tried investigating similar patterns. One was forced into early retirement, another was transferred to traffic duty in a precinct across the country. The third, he paused, his expression grim. The third lost custody of his kids in a suddenly expedited divorce case. The implications sent a chill down Clara's spine. She thought of Lily's bright smile, of their morning routine making pancakes together, of bedtime stories and goodnight kisses. The thought of losing her daughter made her chest tight with fear. But then, another image filled her mind. Ethan's terrified face in the park, his small body trembling as he whispered about other children being hurt. She remembered his eyes lighting up just yesterday when Lily shared her toys with him. Perhaps the first act of kindness he'd experienced in a long time. I appreciate you looking out for me, Mike. I really do. Clara straightened the files on her desk, her movements deliberate and determined. But I've spent my whole career telling victims to be brave, to stand up against abuse, to fight for justice. What kind of example would I be setting for Lily if I backed down now just because it got hard? It's not about backing down, Mike argued. It's about being smart, picking your battles. You're a great cop, Clara, and a fantastic mother. The department needs people like you. These kids need people like you. But you can't help anyone if they destroy your career or worse. Clara stood up, gathering the files into her arms. If I don't fight for these kids, who will? Her voice was quiet but firm. Someone has to shine a light in the dark places, Mike. Someone has to stand up and say, enough. Mike watched her, concern and admiration warring in his expression. Just promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll think about Lily before you take any risks. I think about Lily with every breath I take, Clara replied. And that's exactly why I can't turn my back on this. These children deserve the same protection, the same chance at happiness that I want for my daughter. She hugged the files to her chest like a shield. Evil thrives when good people look the other way. I've built my career on fighting for justice. I've raised my daughter to stand up for what's right. I can't stop now just because it's gotten personal. In fact, that's exactly why I have to continue. Mike stood slowly, resignation clear in his stance. I'll keep my ears open. Try to give you a heads up if I hear anything concerning. Just watch your back, Clara, and maybe consider wearing your vest, even off duty. Thanks, Mike, Clara said softly. I mean it. It helps knowing you're in my corner. Her partner nodded once before turning back to his own desk, leaving Clara standing amid the bustling precinct, her resolve stronger than ever. The files in her arms held stories of children who needed someone to fight for them, and despite the warnings, despite the fear, she knew she couldn't walk away. The morning sun streamed through the stained glass windows of First Baptist Church, casting colorful patterns across the worn wooden pews. Clara sat with Lily in their usual spot, third row from the back, where they'd sat every Sunday since Lily was old enough to walk. The familiar scent of old hymnals and polished wood wrapped around them like a comfortable blanket. Lily colored quietly in her children's Bible, while Pastor Matthews delivered his sermon about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Clara couldn't help but feel the message was meant for her. Her fingers absently traced the gold cross pendant at her neck, a gift from her mother years ago. The Lord calls us to be bold in the face of injustice, Pastor Matthews said, his voice carrying through the sanctuary. But he also asks us to be wise as serpents and gentle as doves. Clara felt several pairs of eyes turn toward her. News traveled fast in their small town, and yesterday's confrontation at the park was already common knowledge. After the service ended, people began filing out of the pews. Clara stood, smoothing Lily's dress and gathering their things. She hadn't made it 3 steps before Mrs. Palinette. Henderson, one of the church's oldest members, approached with a warm smile. Clara, dear, she said, clasping Clara's hands in her own weathered ones. What you did at the park, that was real courage. Reminded me of David standing up to Goliath. Thank you, Mrs. Henderson, Clara replied, feeling a wave of gratitude for the support. Lily tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Can I go say hi to Sophie?" Clara nodded, watching as her daughter skipped off to join her Sunday school friend near the church entrance. The moment Lily was out of earshot, Margaret Wilson, head of the women's ministry, stepped closer. "Clara," Margaret's voice was honey, sweet, but her eyes held concern. "We're all very proud of your dedication to protecting children, but," she glanced meaningfully toward Lily, "you have your own little one to think about. Sometimes it's best to let the proper authorities handle these difficult situations." Clara's jaw tightened slightly. "I am the proper authorities, Margaret." "Of course, dear. I just mean," Margaret lowered her voice, "there are rumors about those people. Dangerous people. Nobody would think less of you for focusing on your daughter instead of stirring things up." Before Clara could respond, Bill Thompson, a retired police officer, approached with his wife. "Don't listen to the worried birds, Clara," he said firmly. "What you're doing is important. This town's been sweeping ugly truths under the rug for too long." His wife nodded vigorously. "We're praying for your safety, dear, and for that poor boy." Clara felt torn between appreciation and frustration as more church members stopped to share their thoughts. Some offered genuine support and prayers. Others voiced thinly veiled suggestions that she should let sleeping dogs lie or think of Lily first. Deacon Roberts pulled her aside near the fellowship hall, his face grave. "Detective Dawson, I respect your position, but some of our more prominent church members are concerned about the attention this situation might bring. We're a peaceful community." "Peaceful for whom?" Clara asked quietly. "What about the children who aren't at peace?" The deacon shifted uncomfortably. "All I'm saying is, sometimes God calls us to protect our own garden first. You understand?" Clara looked across the fellowship hall where Lily was showing Sophie her coloring page. The morning light caught her daughter's blonde curls, creating a sort of halo effect that made Clara's heart ache with love and determination. She turned back to the deacon. "With all due respect, sir, I believe God calls us to protect all his children, not just our own. Jesus didn't look the other way when he saw wrong being done in the temple." Mrs. Chen, who taught Sunday school, touched Clara's arm gently as she passed. "My grandmother had a saying, 'To ignore evil is to invite it to dinner.'" You do what needs doing, Clara. Some of us remember what it's like to be afraid and have no one stand up. Clara clutched her Bible closer to her chest, drawing strength from its familiar weight. The mixed messages swirled around her like autumn leaves. Support and warning, encouragement and caution, faith and fear. Pastor Matthews found her just as she was gathering Lily to leave. His kind eyes crinkled at the corners as he spoke softly. "Clara, I saw you taking in everyone's opinions today." She managed a small smile. "Quite a few of them. Remember what Scripture tells us about doing what's right," he said, placing a weathered hand on her shoulder. "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Tears pricked at Clara's eyes. "Joshua 1:9, she whispered. "That's right." He squeezed her shoulder gently. "The path of righteousness isn't always the easy one, but it's always the right one." As Clara walked with Lily toward their car in the church parking lot, the morning sun warm on their faces, she held her Bible tightly against her chest. The leather cover was soft and worn from years of use, like an old friend offering silent support. Despite the conflicting voices of her church family, she felt a deeper certainty settling in her spirit. "Mommy, are you okay?" Lily asked, her small hand slipping into Clara's. "You look thinking hard." Clara squeezed her daughter's hand. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Just remembering something important." "What's that?" "That doing the right thing isn't always easy, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it." Lily nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense to her 7-year-old mind. "Like when you made me apologize to Katie for taking her crayon, even though I really wanted it?" Clara couldn't help but smile. "Something like that, baby. Something like that." The autumn wind whipped around Clara's unmarked police car as she parked across the street from a rundown warehouse. Her fingers drummed against the steering wheel while she watched the building through her camera's zoom lens. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement, making it easier for her to remain unnoticed. "Third location today," she muttered to herself. snapping photos of a black SUV pulling up to the loading dock. She'd been tracking these vehicles since dawn, following leads from the park incident that had grown into something much darker. Clara checked her watch. 4:15 p.m. Mrs. Thompson from next door would be watching Lily for another 2 hours. The thought of her daughter made her chest tighten, but she pushed the worry aside. This was for all the children who didn't have someone to protect them. Through her lens, she captured images of 2 men emerging from the SUV. One of them looked familiar. She'd seen him in photos with the abuser from the park. They carried duffel bags inside, their movements quick and nervous. Clara's police instincts screamed that something wasn't right. She jotted down license plate numbers and timestamps in her worn leather notebook. The pages were filling up with similar details from other locations: a defunct youth center, an abandoned church, and now this warehouse. Each site connected to someone in the abuser's phone records. "What's your story?" she whispered, zooming in on a man in an expensive suit who stepped out of a silver Mercedes. He didn't fit with the usual crowd at these places. She snapped several clear shots of his face. The cold seeped into her bones as she sat watching. Clara reached for her thermos of coffee, long since gone cold, and took a sip anyway. Her back ached from sitting so long, but she couldn't risk moving now. Not when she was finally getting solid evidence. Hours passed. Clara documented every vehicle, every face, every suspicious package. Her camera's memory card filled with images that could help build a case. But she knew photos alone weren't enough. She needed concrete proof of wrongdoing. At 5:45 p.m., her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Thompson. "Lily finished her homework and had dinner. She's working on something special for you." Clara smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. She typed back a quick "thank you" before returning to her surveillance. The sky had turned a deep purple, and streetlights flickered to life along the empty road. Just as she was about to call it a day, movement caught her eye. A white van backed up to the loading dock, and several men began loading boxes quickly. Clara's camera clicked rapidly, capturing the scene. One box fell, spilling its contents. Expensive electronics, still in their packaging. "Got you," Clara breathed, photographing the evidence of what looked like stolen goods. She noted the van's plates and the time in her notebook, her handwriting barely legible in the growing darkness. When the van pulled away, Clara waited 10 more minutes before starting her car. She took a circuitous route home, checking her rear-view mirror frequently to ensure she wasn't followed. The streets of their small town looked different at night. More shadows, more secrets. Her house looked warm and inviting as she pulled into the driveway at 6:30 p.m. Mrs. Thompson met her at the door with a knowing smile. "She's been quite the busy bee," Mrs. Thompson said, gathering her coat. "Wouldn't tell me what she was making, said it was top secret." Clara thanked her neighbor and locked the door behind her. The house smelled like the spaghetti and meatballs Mrs. Thompson had made for dinner. Her stomach growled, reminding her she'd forgotten to eat lunch. In the kitchen, dirty dishes soaked in the sink, and Lily's math homework lay completed on the counter. Clara set down her camera bag and notebook, rolling her stiff shoulders. That's when she saw it. A piece of paper folded into a heart shape on the kitchen table. Clara picked it up carefully, unfolding it to reveal Lily's careful second-grade handwriting. "Mommy, you're my hero." Below the words, Lily had drawn a picture of Clara in her police uniform, complete with a cape flowing behind her. Little hearts dotted the page, and in the corner, Lily had attempted to draw her police badge. Clara sank into a kitchen chair, holding the note close to her heart. The exhaustion of the day, the weight of her investigation, the fear she carried. It all seemed lighter, somehow. Her daughter's simple words gave her the strength to keep going, to face whatever darkness lay ahead. She heard Lily's soft footsteps padding down the stairs. "Mommy, you're home!" Clara turned, opening her arms as Lily ran into them. She held her daughter close, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. "Did you find my note?" Lily asked, pulling back to look at her mother's face. "I did, sweetheart," Clara said, smoothing Lily's hair. "It's the best thing I've seen all day." "Mrs. Thompson helped me spell hero," Lily admitted proudly. "But I drew the picture all by myself." Clara looked at the note again, at the carefully drawn cape and badge. "It's perfect, Lily. Absolutely perfect." Lily beamed, then pointed to the stove. "Mrs. Thompson saved you some spaghetti. She said you need to eat more." Clara laughed, standing up to warm her dinner. As she moved around the kitchen, Lily chattered about her day at school, her homework, and how Mrs. Thompson had let her help make the meatballs. Clara listened, letting her daughter's voice wash away the tension of surveillance and investigation. The note sat propped against the napkin holder while Clara ate, catching her eye every few minutes. Her daughter's words gave her mission new meaning. She wasn't just a detective following leads. She was a hero in her daughter's eyes, fighting to protect children who needed someone to stand up for them. Clara tucked the note into her jacket pocket, close to her heart, where it would remind her of what she was fighting for. Tomorrow would bring more surveillance, more evidence gathering, more risks. But tonight, she was simply a mother, blessed with a daughter whose love and faith made her stronger than she ever thought possible. The children's interview room at the police station looked nothing like the stark interrogation rooms down the hall. Soft blues and greens painted the walls, and cheerful pictures of animals hung in wooden frames. Plush carpeting covered the floor, and comfortable furniture filled the space. Nothing like the cold metal chairs Clara usually worked with. Clara sat cross-legged on one of the oversized bean bags, making herself smaller and less intimidating. Across from her, Ethan perched nervously on the edge of a cushy armchair, his fingers twisting the hem of his too large sweater. A social worker named Ms. Martinez sat quietly in the corner, present but unobtrusive, taking notes. "Would you like some hot chocolate, Ethan?" Clara asked softly, gesturing to the steaming mug on the low table between them. She'd made sure it wasn't too hot, testing it herself before bringing it in. Ethan's eyes darted to the mug, then back to his lap. After a moment, he gave a tiny nod. "It's okay to take it," Clara encouraged. "And look, I brought those cookies you liked from yesterday, the ones with the chocolate chips." His small hand reached out slowly, wrapping around the warm mug. The sleeves of his sweater fell past his knuckles, and Clara noticed how he used the excess fabric like a safety blanket. "Thank you," he whispered, taking a careful sip. Clara waited, letting him get comfortable with the drink. She'd learned in her years as a detective that silence could be as powerful as questions. Sometimes you had to give people, especially children, space to find their voice. A chocolate chip cookie disappeared into Ethan's hand, and he nibbled at it like a cautious mouse. Some color had returned to his cheeks since that day in the park, but dark circles still haunted his eyes. "Ethan," Clara began gently, "you're being very brave. You know that, right?" He shrugged one shoulder, but his eyes lifted to meet hers for a brief moment. "The other day you told me something important," she continued, "about others. Would you feel okay telling me more about that?" The cookie crumbled in Ethan's tight grip. Crumbs scattered across his lap, but he didn't seem to notice. His breathing quickened. "It's okay if you need time," Clara assured him. "We can just sit here and have our snack." Ms. Martinez shifted in her chair, ready to call a break if needed, but Clara raised her hand slightly. "Wait. They'll hurt them," Ethan whispered so softly. Clara almost missed it. "Who will they hurt, sweetheart?" "The other kids," his voice quavered. "Like they hurt me." Clara's heart clenched, but she kept her voice steady. "Can you tell me about these other kids?" Ethan took another sip of hot chocolate, using the moment to gather himself. Sometimes I could hear them crying in the other rooms." Clara nodded encouragingly, though her stomach churned. "What rooms were these, Ethan?" "The basement rooms, where they put us when we were bad." His hands started shaking so hard that Clara gently took the mug from him before it could spill. "There were lots of doors. I could hear them through the walls sometimes." "Did you ever see any of these other children?" Ethan nodded, tears welling in his eyes. "Sometimes, when they moved us, there was a little girl with red hair. She was crying for her mommy." His voice cracked. "And a boy with glasses. He tried to run once, but they caught him and he couldn't finish." Clara wanted to gather him in her arms right then, but she knew she needed to get more information first. "Do you remember how many children you saw?" 5? Ethan's brow furrowed with concentration. "Maybe more. They kept moving them around." "Can you tell me about the place? What did it look like from the outside?" "It was big and old, with red bricks." Ethan's words came faster now, like a dam breaking. "There were trees all around it, and a gate with black metal bars. The windows were all covered up with boards." Clara recognized the description. It matched one of the locations she'd been surveilling. Her pulse quickened, but she kept her expression calm. "The bad men," Ethan continued, his voice rising with panic. "They said if we ever told anyone, they'd find us. They said they knew where all our families lived. They said—" His words dissolved into gasping sobs. This time, Clara didn't hesitate. She moved to Ethan's chair and knelt beside him. "May I give you a hug?" He practically fell into her arms, his small body shaking with tears. Clara held him close, one hand rubbing gentle circles on his back while he cried into her shoulder. Ms. Martinez dabbed at her own eyes with a tissue. "Listen to me, Ethan," Clara said firmly but tenderly. "You did nothing wrong. Nothing that happened was your fault. And those men? They're the ones who should be scared now." Ethan's sobs quieted slightly as he listened. "You are so brave for telling me about this. You're helping us save those other children." Clara pulled back just enough to look into his tear-stained face. "I promise you, Ethan. It's going to stop now." She held him close again as he cried. But these tears felt different, like relief, like the release of a burden too heavy for small shoulders to bear. Clara met Miss Grape, Martinez's eyes over Ethan's head, and the social worker nodded, understanding passing between them. They had what they needed. Now it was time to act. Ethan's grip on Clara's jacket tightened. "Don't leave," he pleaded. "I won't," Clara assured him, settling more comfortably beside his chair. "We can stay right here as long as you need." She reached for another cookie and broke it in half, offering part to Ethan. "Would you like to hear about the time my daughter Lily taught our cat to high-five?" A tiny sniff, then a nod against her shoulder. Clara launched into the story, keeping her voice warm and steady, while inside her mind was already racing with plans. They had locations now. They had details. Most importantly, they had hope. Hope for Ethan and for all the other children still waiting to be saved. Clara spread photos and documents across the conference room table while her fellow detectives leaned in, studying the evidence she'd gathered over the past weeks. The familiar scent of coffee lingered in the air as afternoon sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting striped shadows across their serious faces. "Based on Ethan's testimony," Clara said, pointing to a map marked with red pins, "they moved the children between these 3 locations. The main house is here, on Maple Street." Her finger tapped a spot near the edge of town. Detective Martinez, her longtime partner, nodded. "Good work getting him to open up, Clara. That couldn't have been easy." "It wasn't." Clara's voice softened as she remembered the fear in Ethan's eyes. "But he's incredibly brave." Once he understood we could help other kids like him, he wanted to tell us everything. Captain Roberts crossed his arms, his weathered face thoughtful. "We'll need more than just the boy's word to make this stick. These people have connections. I've got surveillance photos." Clara pulled out a stack of pictures, spreading them across the table. "Here's our park suspect meeting with 3 other men we've identified as part of the network. And these bank records show suspicious transfers between their accounts." The team spent the next hour reviewing Clara's evidence, building a timeline of the network's activities. They mapped out entry points, escape routes, and potential hiding spots at each location. "We'll need to hit all 3 places simultaneously," Martinez said, drawing circles on the map. "If we miss one, they'll scatter like cockroaches." Clara nodded, her heart racing with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. "I want to lead the team at the main house. That's where Ethan said they keep most of the children." Captain Roberts studied her face. "Are you sure about this, Dawson? You've got Lily to think about." "I'm sure because of Lily," Clara replied firmly. "Every child we save could be someone's Lily. These kids need us." The captain's expression softened. "All right, we'll set up 3 teams. Martinez, you take the warehouse. Johnson, you handle the apartment complex. Clara, you've got point on the main house." They spent another hour coordinating with SWAT, setting up surveillance schedules, and planning their approach. Clara felt energy humming through her body. After weeks of investigation, they were finally moving toward action. As the meeting wrapped up, Clara's phone buzzed with a text from her neighbor watching Lily. A photo appeared showing Lily and Ethan playing board games together. The sight made her pause, warmth spreading through her chest. "Everything okay?" Martinez asked, noticing her expression. "More than okay," Clara smiled, showing him the photo. "This is why we do what we do." After finalizing the operation details for the next day, Clara drove to pick up the children. The late afternoon sun painted the sky in soft oranges and pinks as she pulled into her driveway. Inside, she heard laughter before she even opened the door. She found Lily and Ethan in the living room, surrounded by colorful pieces from 3 different board games they'd somehow combined into their own creation. Lily was explaining their made-up rules with the absolute confidence only a 7-year-old could muster, while Ethan listened intently, a small smile on his face. "See, when you land on the blue spaces, you have to draw a card," Lily declared, "but only if you've already collected 3 yellow pieces." Ethan nodded seriously, then noticed Clara in the doorway. Instead of shrinking away as he would have weeks ago, he gave her a shy wave. "Hi, Detective Clara," he said softly. "Mommy!" Lily jumped up and ran to hug her. "We invented a new game. It's called, Super Mega Rainbow Challenge." Clara hugged her daughter tight, watching over her shoulder as Ethan carefully gathered some scattered game pieces. The change in him over the past weeks was remarkable. Though still quiet, he no longer flinched at sudden movements or hid behind furniture when adults entered the room. He made eye contact now, smiled more often, and even laughed sometimes, especially when playing with Lily. "Would you like to play with us?" Ethan asked, his voice growing stronger with each word. Clara's heart swelled. This was the first time he directly invited her to join their games. "I'd love to," she said. "But first, who's hungry for dinner?" "Me!" both children called out in unison, then giggled at their synchronized response. As Clara watched them head toward the kitchen, hope surged through her heart. Tomorrow would bring challenges and dangers, but seeing these 2 children playing together, healing together, reminded her exactly why she had to see this through. Every child deserved to feel this safe, this happy. She lingered in the doorway a moment longer, committing the scene to memory. Lily showing Ethan how to set the table, their heads bent together as they carefully placed forks and napkins, their laughter echoing through the house. This was what hope looked like. This was what they were fighting for. With tomorrow's operation looming, Clara knew the risks were high. But watching these children, one her daughter by birth, one brought to her by fate and duty, she felt more certain than ever that they were doing the right thing. They would bring justice to those who had hurt Ethan and the other children. They would make their community safer, one rescue at a time. The sound of Lily's giggle and Ethan's quiet chuckle drew her into the kitchen. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, right now there were 2 hungry children waiting for dinner, and a moment of joy to be shared. Clara stepped forward to join them, carrying hope in her heart like a bright flame. The full moon cast long shadows across the abandoned warehouse district as Clara adjusted her bulletproof vest. Her heart pounded against the heavy Kevlar, but her hands remained steady. Around her, fellow officers moved like silent shadows, taking their positions with practiced precision. "Team 1 in position," crackled her radio earpiece. "Team 2 ready," came another whisper. Clara touched the small cross pendant at her neck, a habit from childhood that always brought her peace. In her mind, she saw Lily safe at her sister's house, probably already asleep with her favorite stuffed bear. She thought of Ethan, waiting at the safe house with social services, his eyes full of trust when she'd promised to end this tonight. "All units stand by." Captain Martinez's voice came through clear and firm. "Detective Dawson, your signal." Clara took a deep breath. The cool night air filled her lungs as she watched the warehouse through her binoculars. Right on schedule, a white van pulled up to the loading dock. 2 men stepped out, looking around nervously before sliding open the heavy metal door. "Movement at the south entrance," she whispered into her radio. "Suspects matching descriptions of Johnson and Morris." Her stomach twisted as she spotted small shadows being led from the van. Children, just like Ethan had described. Their heads were down, shoulders hunched in defeat. Clara gripped her radio tighter, forcing herself to wait for the perfect moment. 3 more men emerged from inside the warehouse. Even from this distance, Clara recognized the park attacker's brother among them. They started unloading boxes, their cover operation for trafficking children. "All teams hold positions," Clara commanded softly. "Wait for my mark." Minutes crawled by like hours as they watched more men arrive. Clara counted them silently. 7 suspects total, exactly as their intelligence had indicated. They needed everyone inside before moving. The last child was led through the door. Clara's jaw clenched as she counted 5 young victims. "Dear Lord," she prayed silently, Protect these little ones. The warehouse door started to slide closed. All units go, 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 Clara shouted into her radio. The night erupted into controlled chaos. Police cars roared to life, their hidden positions revealed by blazing lights and sirens. Teams of officers converged from all directions, their flashlights cutting through darkness like laser beams. Police, freeze. Hands where we can see them. Clara sprinted forward with her team, weapon drawn. 2 suspects immediately dropped to their knees, hands raised. Others tried to run, but found every exit blocked by officers. The park attacker's brother made a break for a side door. Clara pursued him through the warehouse, dodging around towers of boxes. Stop, police! He spun around, reaching for his waistband. Clara's training took over. Don't do it, she warned. Hands up! For a heartbeat, their eyes met. She saw the same cruel darkness she'd witnessed in his brother's eyes at the park. He started to pull something from his jacket. Clara fired. The shot echoed through the warehouse as the man fell, clutching his shoulder. The gun he'd been reaching for clattered across the concrete floor. Suspect down, she called into her radio. Need medical here, secure but wounded. All around her, the operation moved like clockwork. Officers secured suspects, while others guided the terrified children to safety. Social workers appeared with blankets and gentle words. Evidence teams began documenting everything. Detective Dawson, Captain Martinez approached her, nodding with approval. Clean operation. We've got all 7 suspects in custody, and the kids are safe. Clara holstered her weapon, her hands shaking slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. The children? Being checked by medical, but they appear physically unharmed. We've already identified 3 of them as matching recent missing persons reports. Clara walked outside, needing a moment to collect herself. The night was giving way to pre-dawn gray, painting the sky in gentle purples and blues. Emergency lights still flashed across the warehouse walls, but the chaos was subsiding into ordered procedure. She watched as the suspects were led to waiting patrol cars. The park attacker's brother glared at her from the back of an ambulance, while paramedics treated his shoulder. She met his gaze steadily, seeing not a monster but a broken man who would never hurt another child. Detective? A young officer touched her arm. There's someone here to see you. Clara turned to find Ethan standing with his social worker near one of the police vans. He'd insisted on being nearby during the operation, wanting to know the moment his tormentors were caught. Clara walked over and knelt before him. His eyes were wide, but clear, no longer clouded by fear. He looked from the warehouse to the police cars and back to Clara's face. Did you get them all? He whispered. Clara gently took his small hand in hers. Yes, sweetheart. We got them all. She gave his fingers a gentle squeeze. You helped us do this. Your bravery helped save those other kids. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. But these were different from the tears of fear she'd seen before. These were tears of relief, of a burden finally lifted. The first rays of sunrise touched his face as Clara pulled him into a gentle hug. You're free now, she whispered, her own eyes growing damp. They can never hurt you or anyone else again. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink as Clara's police cruiser wound its way through the quiet suburban streets. The day's victory still felt surreal. The successful sting operation, the arrests, the rescued children. Most importantly, Ethan was finally safe. Can we get ice cream to celebrate, Mom? Lily bounced in the back seat, her small face glowing with excitement. Pretty please? Clara glanced at her daughter through the rearview mirror and smiled. You know what? I think we deserve some ice cream today. The radio played softly in the background, a cheerful pop song that had both of them swaying to the beat. Lily's clear voice rang out, slightly off-key but full of joy, as she sang along to the chorus. Clara joined in, their shared laughter filling the car. Mom, you're singing it wrong! Lily giggled, covering her ears dramatically. Oh, am I? Clara raised her eyebrows playfully. I thought I was doing pretty good. No way. You sound like Mrs. Parker's cat when it's hungry. Clara gasped in mock offense. I do not. I'll have you know I was in the church choir. When you were 12, Lily finished for her, having heard the story many times before. Their shared laughter felt like medicine for Clara's soul. After weeks of tension and worry, it was wonderful to just be mother and daughter again, sharing a simple moment of joy. The weight of her badge felt lighter tonight, balanced by the warmth of victory and the sound of her daughter's happiness. They turned onto Maple Street, where their favorite ice cream shop, Sweet Scoops, waited just a few blocks ahead. The street lights were beginning to flicker on, creating pools of golden light on the quiet road. Clara hummed along to a new song that had started playing, tapping her fingers on the steering wheel. "Mom?" Lily's voice turned thoughtful. "Is Ethan going to be okay now?" Clara's heart swelled with pride at her daughter's concern for others. "Yes, sweetheart. He's going to stay with the Hendersons. You remember them from church? They're going to take really good care of him. Can he come over sometimes? To play? Of course he can. Once things settle down a bit." The words died in Clara's throat as she spotted something in her headlights. A large, dark truck suddenly swerved out from a side street, cutting across both lanes. Clara's police training kicked in instantly as she hit the brakes, the cruiser's tires squealing against the asphalt. "Hold on, baby," she called out, her arm instinctively reaching back toward Lily as the car skidded to a stop. The truck blocked the entire road, its headlights blazing directly into their windshield. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs as she recognized the vehicle, a black Ford F-150 with a dented front fender. She'd seen it in surveillance photos during the investigation. "Mommy?" Lily's voice trembled. "It's okay, sweetie. Stay in your seat." Clara's voice remained calm and steady, even as her mind raced through possible escape routes. But the truck had them boxed in perfectly. Concrete barriers on one side, a steep ditch on the other. The truck's driver's door flew open with a metallic screech. A tall figure emerged, his face twisted with rage. Clara immediately recognized him, Marcus Wheeler, the older brother of the man she'd arrested in the park. He'd been in the case files too, but they hadn't had enough evidence to arrest him during the sting. Clara's hand moved toward her service weapon, but she knew she couldn't risk drawing it with Lily in the car. Any shootout would put her daughter in danger. She had to think of another way. "Lock your door, Lily," Clara commanded softly. "And whatever happens, stay in the car." Marcus stalked toward their vehicle, his massive frame illuminated by the headlights. His fists were clenched, and even from this distance, Clara could see the vein pulsing in his forehead. This wasn't just about revenge. This was blind fury personified. Clara quickly pressed the panic button on her radio, sending a silent alert to dispatch. Help would come, but not soon enough. She had to protect Lily now. Making a split-second decision, Clara opened her door and stepped out of the cruiser, positioning herself between the approaching man and her daughter. She could hear Lily's frightened breathing behind her, could feel her maternal instinct screaming to get her child to safety. But right now, being the barrier between danger and her daughter was the best protection she could offer. "Marcus Wheeler," Clara called out, her voice carrying the authority of her badge despite the fear coursing through her veins. "Think about what you're doing." "You destroyed my family," Marcus roared, spittle flying from his lips. "You had no right. Your brother hurt children, Marcus. He made his choice." "Shut up." Marcus's face contorted with rage. "You don't know anything. You stuck your nose where it didn't belong, and now you're gonna pay." Clara stood her ground, though every muscle in her body tensed as Marcus moved closer. She could smell alcohol on his breath, could see the wild look in his bloodshot eyes. This was a man with nothing left to lose. Through the car window behind her, Clara heard Lily whimper. The sound steeled her resolve even as it broke her heart. She wouldn't let this man anywhere near her daughter. Marcus's eyes darted between Clara and the car, a cruel smile twisting his features. "That your little girl in there? Maybe it's time you learned how it feels to have your family torn apart." Everything seemed to move in slow motion as Marcus lunged forward, his massive frame hurtling toward them. Clara braced herself, spreading her arms wider to shield her daughter from the incoming attack. The impact came without warning. The truck's headlights blinded Clara as it swerved in front of her car, forcing her to slam on the brakes. Her police instincts kicked in immediately as she recognized the hulking silhouette that emerged from the vehicle. Marcus Turner, the arrested abuser's older brother. His face was contorted with rage in the harsh glare of the headlights. "Mommy!" Lily's frightened voice pierced through the moment of recognition. Clara's hand flew to her holster, but Marcus was faster. He yanked open her car door with crushing force, grabbing her arm and hurling her onto the asphalt. Pain shot through her shoulder as she hit the ground hard. The rough surface scraped against her skin, tearing through her jacket sleeve. "You ruined everything." Marcus's voice was a guttural roar. "You had to play hero, didn't you? Couldn't mind your own business." Lily's scream echoed through the darkening street. The sound pierced Clara's heart like a knife. She tried to push herself up, but a sharp pain in her ribs made her gasp. Warm blood trickled down her arm where she'd hit the ground. "Please," Clara managed, her voice strained. "She's just a child. Let her go." Marcus laughed, a horrible, empty sound that made Clara's skin crawl. "Just like all those other kids were just children? You think you're so righteous, Detective Dawson? You think you can tear apart families and walk away?" Clara's training seemed to desert her in that moment. All her years of experience, all her confidence as a detective, it felt paper thin against the raw hatred in Marcus's eyes. She looked at Lily, still trapped in the back seat, tears streaming down her little face. What had she done? Had her determination to help Ethan put her own daughter in danger? "I'll make you watch," Marcus snarled, taking a step toward the car. "You'll see what happens when you mess with other people's families." Doubt crashed over Clara like a wave. She'd been so sure she was doing the right thing, following God's path, protecting the innocent. But now, lying injured on the cold asphalt, watching this monster approach her daughter, she felt her faith waver. "Mom!" Lily's voice cracked with terror. The sound snapped something inside Clara. Despite the shooting pain in her ribs, she forced herself to move. Her body protested as she dragged herself up, placing herself between Marcus and the car door. Blood dripped from her arm, but she barely noticed it now. "Don't you dare touch her!" Clara's voice was low and steady, even as her legs trembled with the effort of standing. Marcus's face twisted into an ugly sneer. "You're in no position to make threats, Detective." He reached into his jacket, and Clara's heart stopped as she caught the glint of metal. The world seemed to slow down. Clara could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. She thought of her badge, of all it represented. Protection, justice, hope. She thought of Ethan's brave smile earlier that day, of all the children they'd saved. But most of all, she thought of Lily, her precious daughter, the light of her life. Moving purely on instinct now, Clara pressed herself against the car door, making herself as large a barrier as possible between Marcus and Lily. Her injury screamed in protest, but she held firm. She could feel Lily's small hands pressing against the window behind her. "It'll be okay," Clara whispered, though fear gripped every fiber of her being. She wasn't sure if she was trying to convince Lily or herself. The words felt hollow against the weight of their situation, but she repeated them anyway, clinging to them like a lifeline. "It'll be okay." Marcus advanced, his shadow stretching long and dark across the pavement. Clara held her ground, even as her body shook with pain and fear. She kept whispering to Lily, kept herself between her daughter and danger, praying silently for strength she wasn't sure she had anymore. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. Not after everything they'd accomplished today. Not with Lily watching. Not like this. But as Marcus raised his hand, Clara could only press herself more firmly against the car door, shielding her daughter with everything she had left. "It'll be okay, baby," she whispered again, even as fear threatened to overwhelm her. "Mommy's here. It'll be okay." The tears that had been threatening finally spilled over, running hot down her cheeks as she faced what was coming. But she didn't move. She wouldn't move. No matter what happened next, she would protect her daughter until her last breath. Marcus loomed over Clara, his massive frame blocking out the streetlights. The cold pavement pressed against her back as she tried to catch her breath, her shoulder throbbing where she'd hit the ground. The taste of copper filled her mouth. She must have bitten her lip in the fall. "You think you're so special with that badge?" Marcus snarled, taking another menacing step forward. His boots scraped against the asphalt, the sound sharp and threatening in the quiet street. "Playing hero? Sticking your nose where it doesn't belong?" Clara's training screamed at her to fight back, but her body wasn't responding the way it should. The impact had knocked the wind out of her, and her vision swam slightly. She could hear Lily's quiet whimpers from the car, and fear gripped her heart tighter than any physical pain could. "Stay in the car, baby," Clara called out, her voice hoarse but firm. She needed to keep Lily safe, needed to protect her daughter above all else. Maybe she had been wrong to pursue this case, to put her child at risk for the sake of others. The doubt crept in, cold and paralyzing. Marcus's laugh was hollow and cruel. "Yeah, tell her to stay put. Let her watch what happens to nosy cops who don't know their place." He reached into his jacket, and Clara's heart stopped. Was he armed? She tried to push herself up, but her injured shoulder gave way. The pavement scraped against her palms as she fell back. Her gun was still holstered, but in her current position, she couldn't reach it without making herself vulnerable. Years of training and experience seemed to evaporate in the face of this raw, personal threat. "You shouldn't have messed with my brother," Marcus growled. "You shouldn't have messed with our business. Now your little girl gets to learn what happens when—" "Mommy?" Lily's voice cut through the night air, small but clear. Clara's heart seized with terror as she heard the car door open. "Lily, no! Stay in the car!" The words tore from Clara's throat, but Lily stood there, her small frame illuminated by the car's interior light. Her pink backpack was clutched to her chest like a shield, her eyes wide but steady in the darkness. She looked so small, so fragile against the looming threat before them. Marcus turned slightly, distracted by the child's appearance. "Get back in the car, kid. This is between me and your mother." But Lily didn't move. Instead, her voice came again, trembling but determined. "Mommy, you said we don't run from bullies. We shine the light." The words hit Clara like a physical force. She remembered that conversation from months ago, after Lily had come home crying about a mean kid at school. They had sat on Lily's bed, surrounded by her stuffed animals, and Clara had taught her daughter about standing up to fear, about being brave even when it was hard. "That's right, baby," Clara had told her then. "We don't run from bullies. We shine the light on what they're doing wrong. We stand up, and we show them that good is stronger than bad." Now, hearing those words echoed back to her in her daughter's brave little voice, something shifted in Clara's chest. The doubt and fear began to recede, replaced by a familiar warmth, the same feeling she got every time she put on her badge, every time she fought for justice, every time she protected those who couldn't protect themselves. She looked at Lily, really looked at her daughter standing there in her butterfly t-shirt and light-up sneakers, showing more courage than any trained officer Clara had ever known. Their eyes met across the darkness, and in that moment, Clara felt something unlock inside her. This wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't even just about Ethan or the other children they'd saved. This was about showing her daughter that good people don't back down, that light always overcomes darkness, that love is stronger than fear. Clara's vision cleared, her focus sharpening with renewed purpose. She could feel her strength returning, not just physical strength, but something deeper, the kind of strength that came from knowing you were fighting for something bigger than yourself. She locked eyes with her daughter, and in Lily's steady gaze, she saw reflected all the courage she had somehow forgotten she possessed. The spark of determination that had driven her to become a detective, to be both a mother and a protector, to stand up for what was right. It all came flooding back. The pain in her shoulder was still there, the situation still dangerous, but Clara felt different now, centered, focused, ready. Her daughter's words had done more than remind her of an old lesson. They had reignited the fierce, protective spirit that made her who she was. As she held Lily's gaze, Clara felt her heart swell with pride and love. Her little girl, her brave, beautiful daughter, had just taught her mother the most important lesson of all. That sometimes the greatest courage comes from the smallest voices, and that true strength isn't about never being afraid, it's about standing up anyway. "Mommy, you said we don't run from bullies. We shine the light." Those words pierced through Clara's fog of fear and pain like a beam of sunlight. Her daughter's voice, though trembling, carried a strength that made Clara's heart swell. In that moment, she wasn't just Detective Dawson. She was Lily's mother, and she had taught her daughter to be brave. Marcus lunged forward, but Clara's police training kicked in automatically. She rolled to her side, keeping Lily behind her, while simultaneously pulling her legs up for protection. Her shoulders screamed in protest, but adrenaline dulled the pain. "Stay back, baby," Clara ordered firmly but gently. Lily pressed herself against the car, her eyes wide but determined. Marcus swung wildly, his rage making him sloppy. Clara blocked his punch with her forearm, wincing at the impact, but grateful for all those hours of defense training at the academy. She might be hurt, but muscle memory was on her side. "You're under arrest," Clara announced clearly, her voice carrying across the empty street. She needed witnesses, needed someone to hear. "Stop now, or you'll only make it worse for yourself." "Shut up," Marcus roared, launching another attack. This time, Clara was ready. As he charged, she sidestepped, using his momentum against him. Her hands found his arm, and with a swift movement, She twisted it behind his back. The self-defense maneuver was textbook perfect, despite her injured shoulder protesting every motion. But Marcus was strong, too strong. He wrenched free, spinning around with unexpected agility for his size. His elbow caught Clara in the ribs, sending her stumbling backward. Pain exploded in her side. "Mommy!" Lily cried out. The fear in her daughter's voice ignited something primal in Clara. She straightened up, ignoring the stabbing pain in her ribs. Her eyes locked onto Marcus, analyzing his stance, his breathing, his next likely move. Just as she'd been trained. When he charged again, Clara was prepared. She dropped low, using his weight against him. With a swift sweep of her leg, she knocked his feet out from under him. Marcus crashed to the pavement with a heavy thud, but he wasn't done. He grabbed Clara's ankle, pulling her down. They grappled on the asphalt, Clara fighting to maintain control while protecting her injured side. Marcus had size and strength, but Clara had years of training and a mother's determination. She managed to get on top, pinning one of his arms with her knee. Her other leg hooked around his, preventing him from bucking her off. "Stop fighting!" she commanded, using her full body weight to hold him down. Marcus thrashed beneath her, spitting curses. Clara gritted her teeth, maintaining her hold despite the burning in her muscles. She could hear Lily whimpering behind her, and that sound steeled her resolve. "Officer in need of assistance," Clara shouted, hoping someone, anyone, would hear. "Corner of Oak and Madison!" Marcus tried to headbutt her, but Clara jerked back just in time. She tightened her grip on his arm, twisting it into a more secure hold. Her free hand searched for her handcuffs, which she always kept clipped to her belt, even off duty. The metal clinked as she pulled them free. Years of practice let her maneuver them one-handed, even as Marcus continued to struggle. The first cuff snapped around his wrist. "You're making a big mistake," Marcus growled. But Clara could hear the first note of defeat in his voice. "The only mistake," Clara said through gritted teeth, "was thinking you could threaten my daughter." With a final surge of strength, she secured his other wrist, locking the handcuffs in place. Marcus lay face down on the pavement, still cursing but no longer able to fight effectively. Clara's body trembled with exhaustion and pain, but she maintained her position. She wasn't taking any chances until backup arrived. Her ribs ached with each breath, and her shoulder felt like it was on fire, but none of that mattered. She had won. "Lily," she called out, keeping her voice steady despite her ragged breathing. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" "Yes, Mommy," Lily answered, her voice small but brave. "Good girl. Stay right there for just a minute longer, okay?" In the distance, Clara finally heard what she'd been praying for. Sirens. The wonderful sound grew louder, accompanied by the flash of red and blue lights reflecting off nearby buildings. Help was coming. 2 patrol cars screeched around the corner, tires squealing on the asphalt. Officers poured out, weapons drawn. "Detective Dawson," Officer Daniels' voice rang out. "We've got you." Clara nearly collapsed with relief as her fellow officers rushed forward. 2 of them took control of Marcus, while Daniels hurried to her side. "Easy, Detective," he said, supporting her as she stumbled to her feet. "You're hurt." But Clara had only one thought. "Lily?" she gasped, pushing away from Daniels. Her daughter ran into her arms, and Clara dropped to her knees, ignoring the explosion of pain in her ribs. She pulled Lily close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Lily's small body shook with sobs, but her arms wrapped tightly around Clara's neck. "I've got you," Clara whispered, stroking Lily's hair. "I've got you, baby." Around them, the scene burst with activity. Officers secured Marcus in a patrol car, while others began marking off the area with crime scene tape. Someone was radioing for an ambulance, but Clara barely noticed any of it. She just held her daughter, their hearts beating together, both of them safe. When her legs finally gave out, Clara sank fully to the ground, still clutching Lily. Officer Daniels hovered nearby, speaking into his radio, but Clara could only focus on her daughter's warmth, on the miracle that they were both alive and together. The wail of another siren approached. The ambulance, this time. But Clara didn't move. She just held Lily tighter, whispering prayers of thanksgiving, as red and blue lights painted the night around them in shifting patterns of color and shadow. The steady beep of medical monitors filled the hospital room as Clara's eyes fluttered open. White ceiling tiles came into focus, and she felt a small, warm hand clutching hers tightly. She turned her head slightly, wincing at the stiffness in her neck, to see Lily curled up in a chair beside the bed, her daughter's fingers intertwined with her own. "Hey, sweetheart," Clara whispered, her voice rough. Lily's head shot up, her eyes bright with tears. "Mommy!" She started to launch herself forward, but stopped, remembering the nurse's warning about being gentle. Instead, she squeezed Clara's hand harder. "You've been sleeping forever." Clara managed a small smile, though her body ached. Bandages wrapped around her ribs, and her left arm was in a sling. The events from the ambush came rushing back. The truck, the attacker, Lily's brave words, the fight. How long was I out? "Just one day," came a familiar voice. Clara's partner, Detective Sarah Martinez, stood in the doorway. "You've got 3 cracked ribs and a dislocated shoulder, but the doctors say you'll make a full recovery." Sarah stepped into the room, her expression softening. "You did good, Clara. Really good." Lily nodded eagerly. "The bad man is in jail now. And Miss Sarah let me have 2 puddings from the cafeteria." Clara chuckled, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through her side. "Easy there," Sarah cautioned, moving closer to adjust Clara's pillows. "The whole department's talking about what you did. Taking down a man twice your size while injured? That's going in the training manuals." "I had good motivation," Clara said softly, looking at Lily. Her daughter beamed back at her, and Clara felt tears welling up. She'd been so scared, not for herself, but for Lily. Yet somehow, her little girl's courage had given her strength when she needed it most. A nurse came in to check Clara's vitals, making notes on a chart while explaining her injuries and recovery timeline. "You'll need to take it easy for at least 6 weeks, the nurse advised, adjusting Clara's the 4th. "But considering what could have happened, you're very lucky." "Can I show Mommy my drawings?" Lily asked the nurse, practically bouncing in her chair. At the nurse's nod, she retrieved a stack of papers from her backpack. "I made these while you were sleeping. This one's you catching bad guys, and this one's us at the park, and this one's Ethan." Clara's heart jumped at the mention of Ethan. "How is he?" she asked, looking to Sarah. "He's safe," Sarah assured her. "The foster family we found, the Hendersons, they're wonderful people. They've been asking to visit, actually. Would you feel up to seeing them later today?" Clara nodded, relief washing over her. While Lily showed her more drawings, Sarah filled her in on everything she'd missed. The entire network had been exposed, with multiple arrests made across the county. Evidence seized during the sting operation had led to even more children being rescued. The local news was calling it the biggest child trafficking bust in the state's history. Throughout the morning, Clara dozed on and off, the pain medication making her drowsy. Lily remained by her side, alternating between coloring new pictures and telling elaborate stories about what the hospital cafeteria served for breakfast. Clara's church pastor stopped by with flowers and a prayer, and several fellow officers came to check on her. In the early afternoon, there was a gentle knock at the door. Clara opened her eyes to see Mrs. Henderson, a warm-faced woman in her 50s, standing there with Ethan partially hidden behind her. "Come in," Clara called softly, trying to sit up straighter despite her ribs protesting. Ethan peeked around Mrs. Henderson, his eyes wide as he took in Clara's bandages. But when Lily waved enthusiastically at him, a small smile appeared on his face. He stepped into the room, clutching a handmade card. "We've been so worried about you," Mrs. Henderson said, guiding Ethan forward. "When we heard what happened—" "I'm okay," Clara assured them, focusing on Ethan. "How are you doing, buddy?" Ethan glanced up at Mrs. Henderson, who nodded encouragingly. He moved closer to the bed, holding out the card. "I made this for you," he said quietly. Clara took it with her good hand, her heart melting at the crayon drawing on the front. Stick figures of herself, Lily, and Ethan at the park, complete with a bright yellow sun and fluffy clouds. Inside, in careful printing, it read, "Thank you for saving me." "It's beautiful," Clara whispered, emotion making her voice thick. "Thank you, Ethan." Mrs. Henderson placed a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder. "He's been doing so well with us," she said. "We've enrolled him in school, and he's already making friends in the neighborhood. My husband's teaching him how to play baseball." Ethan nodded, some of his shyness falling away. "I can catch the ball now," he said proudly. "And Mrs. Henderson makes really good cookies. She lets me help stir. That's wonderful, Clara said, watching as Lily hopped down from her chair to show Ethan her own drawings. The two children huddled together over Lily's artwork, their heads bent close as they talked quietly. Mrs. Henderson moved closer to Clara's bed, her eyes shining with tears. "We can never thank you enough," she said softly. "What you did, putting yourself at risk like that. You saved so many children. And Ethan, he's such a special boy. We've already started the adoption process." Clara felt her own eyes welling up as she watched Ethan laugh at something Lily said. The fear and sadness that had haunted his face when she first met him in the park was gone, replaced by the natural joy of childhood. He looked up, catching her watching him, and his eyes shone with gratitude and something more: trust, hope, the beginning of healing. "God works in mysterious ways," Mrs. Henderson continued, following Clara's gaze. "Sometimes it takes one person's courage to set a miracle in motion." Lily was now showing Ethan how to make paper airplanes, their giggles filling the sterile hospital room with life. Clara watched them, her heart full despite her injuries. This was why she'd become a police officer in the first place. Not just to catch bad guys, but to protect the innocent, to help create moments like this where children could simply be children, safe and free from fear. The pain in her ribs seemed less important as she watched Ethan's face light up when his paper airplane soared across the room. His eyes met hers again, and in that moment, Clara knew that every risk had been worth it. Sometimes saving one child really could change the world. Not just for that child, but for everyone whose life they would touch. Mrs. Henderson squeezed Clara's hand gently. "We'll let you rest soon, but Ethan wanted to make sure you knew." She paused, smiling at the boy who was now teaching Lily his own special way of folding the paper. "He wanted you to know that he feels safe now. Really safe, for the first time he can remember." The morning sun streamed through Clara's living room windows, casting warm patches of light across the worn carpet. She sat propped up on her favorite armchair, surrounded by pillows that Lily had meticulously arranged just right. Her ribs still ached, but each day brought a little more mobility and a little less pain. "Careful with those dinosaurs," Clara called out as Lily and Ethan thundered past, clutching plastic T-Rexes and Triceratops. The children had transformed the coffee table into what they called Dino Mountain, complete with a blanket draped over it to create caves. "Sorry, Mommy." Lily's voice carried from behind the makeshift mountain. "We're being gentle, promise?" Clara smiled, adjusting the sling on her left arm. The doctors had insisted she'd take at least 2 weeks off work, and while normally she'd have protested, watching these two children play made her grateful for the forced rest. Ethan's head poked out from behind the blanket, his eyes bright with excitement, a stark contrast to the terrified boy she'd met in the park. "Miss Clara, can we have juice boxes?" "Of course, sweetie. Lily, can you help him?" "They're on the bottom shelf of the fridge." The children scampered to the kitchen, their sock-covered feet sliding on the hardwood floors. Clara heard the refrigerator door open, followed by serious discussion about whether apple or grape juice was the superior choice. Sarah Martinez, Clara's partner, had arranged for Ethan to spend his days at Clara's house while his foster family, the Thompsons from church, were at work. The arrangement seemed to be healing for everyone involved. Ethan was slowly learning to trust again. Lily had found a faithful playmate, and Clara could keep an eye on both of them while she recovered. "Look what I taught Ethan," Lily announced as they returned, carefully carrying their juice boxes. She demonstrated an elaborate secret handshake that involved 3 high fives, 2 fist bumps, and ended with both children spinning in a circle. "Very impressive." Clara laughed, then pressed a hand to her ribs. "Maybe I'll learn it too, once I'm all better." Ethan settled cross-legged on the floor near Clara's chair, sipping his juice thoughtfully. "Does it hurt bad?" he asked quietly. Clara reached out with her good hand to ruffle his hair. "It's getting better every day. Besides, having you two around is the best medicine." The boy's face lit up at that, and he returned to Dino Mountain with renewed enthusiasm. Clara watched as the children's imaginations transformed her living room into a prehistoric wonderland. Their dinosaurs went on epic adventures, rescued each other from dangerous situations, and always worked together to overcome obstacles. By lunchtime, Clara managed to stand and shuffle to the kitchen, where she supervised sandwich making. Lily insisted on helping Ethan spread peanut butter, showing him the proper technique she'd learned from her mother. They sat at the kitchen table, legs swinging, trading potato chips and stories. And then, Lily was saying between bites, "My friend Katie brought her hamster to show and tell, but it escaped. We all had to be super quiet while Ms. Peterson looked for it." Ethan giggled, a sound that grew more frequent with each passing day. "Did they find it?" "Yeah, it was sleeping in Katie's pencil box." Clara soaked in these moments of normalcy, remembering how just a week ago, she'd been in a hospital bed. The bruises were fading, but more importantly, the shadows in Ethan's eyes were lifting. He no longer flinched when someone moved too quickly, and his nightmares had become less frequent, according to the Thompsons. After lunch, while the kids were sprawled on their stomachs coloring, Clara's phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Court date set for next month. All defendants in custody. End of Gan. You did it, partner." Relief washed over Clara. The network was truly finished, their victim safe. She looked at Ethan, his tongue sticking out slightly as he concentrated on staying within the lines of his dinosaur picture, and sent up a silent prayer of thanks. The afternoon drifted by peacefully. Clara dozed in her chair while the children built a fort using every spare blanket in the house. They played school, with Lily as the teacher and Ethan as her sole student, learning about important subjects like why purple was the best color and how to spot a friendly dog. When Mrs. Thompson came to pick up Ethan at 4 o'clock, he didn't show his usual reluctance to leave. Instead, he carefully packed his drawings in his backpack and gave Lily their special handshake. "See you tomorrow?" he asked hopefully. "Of course," Lily assured him. "We still have to finish our castle." Clara watched from her chair as Ethan hugged Lily goodbye, then came over to give her a gentle hug too, mindful of her injuries. "Thank you, Miss Clara," he whispered. After they left, Lily curled up on the couch near her mother. "I like having Ethan here," she said. "He's like the brother I never had." Clara's heart swelled. "You've been such a good friend to him, sweetheart. You're helping him heal, just like you helped me heal." "That's 'cause we're a team," Lily declared, then grew thoughtful. "Mommy, remember when you said sometimes being brave means being scared but doing the right thing anyway?" "I do remember that. Well, I think you're the bravest person ever. And now Ethan doesn't have to be scared anymore." Clara blinked back tears as she watched her daughter return to the scattered crayons and paper on the floor. The sound of Lily humming while she drew, the lingering evidence of children's play throughout the room, the knowledge that tomorrow would bring another day of laughter and healing, it all wrapped around Clara like a warm blanket. Through the window, she could see the late afternoon sun painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. The same sun that had witnessed their darkest moments now illuminated their path to recovery. Clara shifted in her chair, finding a more comfortable position, and smiled as she watched Lily adding the finishing touches to her drawing. 2 stick figures holding hands, one taller than the other, standing in front of what appeared to be a rainbow-colored house. The week of recovery had transformed her living room into a sanctuary of childhood joy. Where there had once been fear and uncertainty, now there was the scattered evidence of imagination and play. Dinosaurs lounging on windowsills, half-finished drawings waiting to be completed tomorrow, and the beautiful mess of blanket forts and shared dreams. Clara smiled, watching Lily add a 3rd stick figure to her drawing, Ethan, holding hands with the other 2. In giving these children safety and protection, she had given them something even more precious, the chance to simply be children again, to play without fear, to laugh without shadows. It was a gift beyond measure, worth every ache and pain of recovery. The park looked different now. Fresh flowers lined the walking paths, and colorful balloons bobbed in the gentle breeze. Where there had once been shadows of fear, now sunshine painted everything in bright, hopeful colors. The playground equipment gleamed with new paint, and a small stage had been set up near the swings. Clara sat in the front row, her arms still in a sling but healing well. Lily snuggled close beside her, wearing her favorite yellow dress with sunflowers. The metal folding chairs around them filled quickly as townspeople gathered for the ceremony. "Look, Mom," Lily pointed toward the parking lot. "There's Ethan and his new family." Clara turned to see Ethan walking hand in hand with Sarah and Tom Miller, the couple from church who had become his foster parents. The change in him was remarkable. His shoulders were straight now, his steps confident. He wore crisp new jeans and a blue button-down shirt that made his eyes sparkle. "Detective Dawson!" Officer Daniels hurried over, his uniform pressed perfectly for the occasion. The mayor's ready to begin whenever you are. Clara nodded, squeezing Lily's hand. Ready, sweetie? Ready. Lily bounced in her seat. Can I hold your good hand when you get your award? Of course you can. Mayor Thompson approached the microphone, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. Good morning, everyone. We're here today to celebrate extraordinary courage and compassion in our community. The crowd settled into respectful silence. Clara noticed familiar faces everywhere. Fellow officers, church members, parents from Lily's school. Even those who had once urged her to let it go now sat forward attentively. 2 months ago, this park was the starting point of something remarkable, the mayor continued. One mother's brave action sparked an investigation that would save not just one child, but many. Detective Clara Dawson saw something wrong and refused to look away. Clara felt tears prick at her eyes as she remembered that first moment, seeing Ethan's terrified face, hearing that horrible man's threats. She'd had no idea then how far it would all lead. Through Detective Dawson's persistence, and with the dedicated work of our entire police force, a network of child abuse was exposed and dismantled. 12 children are now safe. 15 perpetrators are in custody, and our community has learned an important lesson about standing up for what's right. The mayor gestured to a covered plaque near the playground. Today, we dedicate this memorial, not to remind us of darkness, but to celebrate light, to remind us that one person's courage can change many lives. 2 officers pulled away the cloth, revealing a bronze plaque set in stone. Clara read the words through blur of tears. Courage begins with one voice, dedicated to those who protect our children and shine light in dark places. Detective Dawson, the mayor called. Would you please join me? Clara stood, Lily's small hand warm in hers. They walked together to the stage, where the mayor presented her with a commendation. The applause was thunderous. Would you like to say a few words? The mayor asked. Clara stepped to the microphone, her daughter still holding tight to her good hand. Thank you all. But I'm not the only hero here. Every officer who worked this case, every social worker who helped place children in safe homes, every foster family who opened their hearts, you're all heroes. She caught Ethan's eye in the crowd. He sat tall between Sarah and Tom, a hint of a smile playing at his lips. Someone very wise recently reminded me that we don't run from bullies, Clara continued, looking down at Lily. We shine the light. That's what this community did together. We shined a light on darkness, and love won. More applause filled the air. As Clara stepped down from the stage, people began to mingle. The formal ceremony shifted into a community celebration. Someone had set up tables with punch and cookies. Children gravitated toward the playground equipment. Ethan made his way through the crowd to Clara, Sarah, and Tom, following close behind. Thank you, he said simply, wrapping his arms around her waist in a careful hug that avoided her injuries. You're the brave one, Clara told him softly. You helped us save the others. Sarah wiped happy tears from her eyes. He's doing so well in school now, and he's even joined the junior soccer league. Can I go play? Ethan asked, looking at his foster parents. Of course, sweetheart, Tom said. Lily grabbed Ethan's hand. Race you to the swings! Clara watched as Ethan took off across the grass, running with the abandoned joy of a truly free child. His laughter rang out as Lily chased after him, their feet kicking up dandelion fluff that danced in the sunlight. Other children joined them, until the playground echoed with the sounds of pure happiness. The sight made Clara's heart feel so full, it might burst. This was what childhood should be, carefree, joyful, safe. This was what they had fought to protect. She found herself walking toward the new plaque, tracing the words with her fingers. Behind her, Ethan's laughter carried across the park again, mixed with Lily's delighted squeals. The sound was better than any awards ceremony could ever be. It was the sound of healing, of hope, of light, winning over darkness. Clara closed her eyes and let the spring sunshine warm her face, listening to the children play. This park was no longer a place of shadows and fear. Now it rang with the echoes of freedom, friendship, and the pure, unfettered joy of children who knew they were safe and loved. The celebration had ended hours ago, but Clara couldn't bring herself to leave just yet. Lily was sleeping over at a friend's house, giving Clara a rare moment of solitude. The setting sun painted the sky in soft pinks and purples, casting long shadows across the playground where everything had begun. She walked slowly along the winding path, her shoes crunching quietly on the gravel. The evening breeze carried the sweet scent of newly planted flowers, a gentle reminder of renewal. Her arm still ached in its sling, but the pain had become more of a whisper than a shout. Clara paused by the swings where she had first spotted Ethan that Saturday morning. They swayed slightly in the wind, their chains making soft, creaking sounds that echoed in the empty park. How different things had been then. How afraid she had been, though she hadn't shown it. The memory of that first confrontation washed over her. She could still see the man's sneering face, feel the weight of her badge as she revealed it, hear the collective gasp from the watching parents. That single moment had changed so many lives, including her own. Moving to the nearby bench, Clara sat down, feeling the coolness of the metal through her thin jacket. The plaque they'd unveiled today gleamed on a stone pedestal nearby. She hadn't wanted the recognition, but the mayor had insisted. "Courage stands here," it read, followed by words about a mother's love and justice prevailing. Clara smiled slightly, remembering Lily's proud face during the ceremony. The cost of that courage had been high. Her hand unconsciously touched her healing ribs, reminding her of the ambush, of shielding Lily from harm. The terror of that moment still visited her dreams sometimes. The truck appearing out of nowhere, the rage in the attacker's eyes, Lily's scream. But even in that darkest moment, light had broken through. Her daughter's words had given her strength. "We don't run from bullies. We shine the light." Clara stood and walked toward the playground castle where Ethan and Lily had played earlier today. Their laughter still seemed to echo in the air. Ethan's transformation amazed her, from a terrified child to one who could smile freely again. The Millers were good people, active in their church community. They would give him the stable, loving home he deserved. The investigation had revealed so much darkness, a network of evil that had operated in shadows for too long. But bringing it into the light had allowed healing to begin, not just for Ethan, but for other children too. Some nights, during the investigation, the weight of what she'd discovered had felt crushing. Only her faith had kept her going. That and the quiet certainty that God had put her in that park that morning for a reason. Clara reached the small garden area where community members had planted flowers today, a symbol of new beginnings. Yellow daffodils and purple crocuses stretched toward the fading light, reminding her of hope's persistence. She touched a soft petal, remembering how the community had finally come together. Even those who had initially urged her to let it go had eventually joined the effort to make their town safer for all children. The evening air grew cooler as Clara walked toward the center of the park. String lights twinkled in the trees, left over from the celebration. They reminded her of stars, of light pushing back darkness. She thought of all the prayers she'd whispered during this journey. Desperate prayers for protection, for guidance, for strength when her own felt insufficient. The path led her to a small fountain, where water trickled peacefully over stones. Clara stopped there, listening to its gentle music. So much had changed since that first morning in the park. She was different too, stronger perhaps, but also more aware of both the darkness and light that existed in the world. Her faith had deepened, tested by fire, but emerging more real than ever. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees as Clara found herself back near the swings. A sense of completion filled her heart, of coming full circle. She thought of Lily's bravery, of Ethan's resilience, of the countless people who had ultimately chosen to stand for what was right. Through all the fear and pain, grace had been present, sustaining her when her own strength faltered. Clara closed her eyes, feeling the gentle evening breeze against her face. Her heart felt full, with gratitude, with peace, with a quiet joy that came from knowing she had followed the path God had set before her, no matter how difficult it had become. Standing there in the growing twilight, surrounded by the evidence of healing and new beginnings, Clara whispered a prayer of thanks, feeling peace wash over her. Weeks had passed since the celebration, and the park had transformed into something entirely new. Fresh mulch cushioned the playground, and newly planted flowers dotted the borders with splashes of yellow and purple. Clara sat on a wooden bench, watching Lily chase butterflies across the grass. The late afternoon sun warmed her face, and a gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of spring. "Look, Mom," Lily called out, pointing toward the park entrance. "It's Ethan." Clara's heart swelled as she watched Ethan running toward them, his foster mother Sarah following close behind. Gone was the frightened boy from that terrible day. In his place was a child with bright eyes and an even brighter smile. "Miss Clara," Ethan waved enthusiastically, his sneakers lighting up with each bouncing step. "Did you see? I got new shoes." "Those are some pretty cool shoes," Clara said, making room on the bench as Sarah caught up. "How's school going?" "I got an A on my science project," Ethan beamed, showing off the gap where he'd recently lost a tooth. "Sarah helped me build a volcano. It actually exploded." "With baking soda," Sarah added with a laugh. "The kitchen's still recovering." Lily tugged on Ethan's sleeve. "Want to go on the swings? I bet I can go higher." The two children raced off toward the playground, their laughter carrying across the park. Clara watched them climb onto the swings, remembering how different things had been just weeks ago. The same swings where she'd first noticed Ethan in danger now lifted him toward the clouds, joy written across his face. "He's doing so well," Sarah said softly, settling beside Clara. "The nightmares are getting less frequent. Last week, he even joined the school's art club." Clara nodded, fighting back tears. "I saw his drawing on your fridge. The one with all the hearts?" "That's his family portrait," Sarah smiled. "He drew all of us, me, Tom, our other kids, and you and Lily are in there too, right in the middle." A group of children ran past, playing tag. Their shouts and giggles filled the air where once there had been tension and fear. Parents chatted on nearby benches, relaxed and at ease. The park had become what it was always meant to be, a safe haven for childhood innocence. "Remember that first day at our house?" Sarah asked. "When he wouldn't let go of your hand?" Clara remembered it clearly. Ethan had clung to her like a lifeline, terrified of being left alone with strangers. It had taken hours of gentle coaxing and promises to visit before he'd finally agreed to stay. "Now we can barely keep up with him," Sarah chuckled. "Yesterday he insisted on joining Tom's evening jog, made it 3 blocks before demanding a piggyback ride home." "Mom!" Lily's voice carried across the playground. "Watch this!" Clara looked up to see her daughter pumping her legs on the swing, going higher and higher. Beside her, Ethan matched her rhythm, both of them reaching for the sky. Their faces glowed with determination and delight. "Be careful, sweetie," Clara called back, even as her heart swelled with pride. Her brave, beautiful girl who had taught her so much about courage. The sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the grass. Other families started packing up their blankets and toys, heading home for dinner. But Clara wasn't ready to leave just yet. This moment felt too precious to rush. "We should get going soon," Sarah said, checking her watch. "Tom's making his famous spaghetti tonight. You and Lily should join us sometime." "We'd love that," Clara smiled. She watched as Sarah called out to Ethan, who gave his swing one final pump before jumping off. "Just 5 more minutes?" Lily pleaded as she ran up to Clara, her cheeks flushed from playing. "Okay, 5 more minutes," Clara agreed. "Say goodbye to Ethan first." The children hugged, making plans for their next play date. Ethan wrapped his arms around Clara's waist before following Sarah toward the parking lot, turning back twice to wave. Clara settled back onto the bench, and Lily snuggled close against her side. Together, they watched the remaining children on the playground, some on the slide, others building castles in the sandbox. The sound of their laughter mixed with bird song and the gentle creaking of swing chains. "Mommy?" Lily looked up at her mother. "Are you crying?" Clara hadn't even noticed the tears until Lily mentioned them. She wiped them away with the back of her hand, smiling through the moisture. "Happy tears, baby. Sometimes hearts get so full of joy they overflow a little." Lily nodded sagely, as though this made perfect sense. "Like when we saved Ethan?" "Exactly like that." Clara pulled her daughter closer, kissing the top of her head. She thought about all the children still out there needing help. All the battles yet to be fought. The weight of it could be overwhelming if she let it. But then she looked at Ethan's retreating figure, walking tall and confident beside his new mother. She watched the children playing freely in this park that had once held so much darkness, and she felt Lily's warm presence beside her, strong and unafraid. What would you do if you were in their place? Comment your answer below and let's see how you'd rewrite the ending. If you enjoyed the story of Clara Dawson, I handpicked the next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.